Chapter 176. Jing Yunjiao didn't have the intention to meddle in other people's business, but because Gan Songbai and the Xiang family knew each other in the past, his expression was a bit heavy right now. Even if I save this old lady, she won't know how to repay the kindness. She might even torment you even more. How about this? You bring me to see your mother. Gan Songbai pondered for a moment before suggesting. If you're willing to make a trip, that'd be great. It's just that Qin Jishui won't let me leave Huaning County at all. He used the name of the patient's family to reject all visitors. I can't see my mother at all. Xiang Jin was also a bit anxious. Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips. He was a bit tempted by this Xiang Jin. Currently, the company was lacking manpower. It was easy to recruit ordinary employees, but there were very few capable ones. If what Xiang Jin said was true, then recruiting her under his banner should be a pretty good choice. However, Jing Yunjiao wouldn't reveal the company's matters before confirming whether she had the ability or not. Now that Xiang Jin said this, Gan Songbai also had no other choice. Just as the grudge between them was bleak, Xiang Jin sighed. My father used to like researching antiques, so he got to know Ning City CEO Tang. Their relationship was very good, but I've never met CEO Tang and don't have his contact information. If she could contact the Tang family, she'd definitely give it a try, even if the Tang family rejected her request in the end. She remembered that her father used to like going to the Tang family to observe those good things. After he came back, he'd vividly tell her about it. It was just that their Xiang family wasn't considered a big company, and their financial resources couldn't compare to the Tang family. Her father only went to the Tang family to satisfy his cravings. Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. Truly, there were no stories without coincidences. You're talking about Elder Tanglin? Jing Yunjiao still asked. That's right. Xiang Jin was stunned. Jing Yunjiao exhaled. I can give you his number, but I'm not sure if he'll help you. After all, so many years have passed. It's still unknown if he'll remember someone like you. How could Elder Tang's private number be so easy to get? Otherwise, Xiang Jin wouldn't be so helpless until now. Hearing Jing Yunjiao's words, Xiang Jin was completely stunned. She didn't know if it was true or false. Even Gan Songbai looked at her in surprise. He didn't quite understand. When did this girl become acquainted with Ning City's leading figure? And there was even a way to contact him? Really? Xiang Jin's heart almost stopped beating. Why don't I give you my phone? You can contact them now, but I have a request. Jing Yunjiao paused for a moment before he continued. If Elder Tang is willing to help you, you can look for this person after you settle your family matters. If he recognizes you, you will need to work in his company. Is that okay? Jing Yunjiao took out a business card with Pak Yuan's contact information. Jing Yunjiao's attitude was a little strange, which confused both of them. However, Xiang Jin reacted quickly. At this time, it was related to her mother, so she immediately nodded. The next second, Jing Yunjiao handed her the phone. At this time, Elder Tang was leisurely drinking afternoon tea when a call came in. Seeing Jing Yunjiao's name on the screen, he couldn't help but feel a little better. However, when he picked up the phone, he heard an unfamiliar female voice. When he heard it again, his face turned ugly. There weren't many people that he could call friends with, and this old Xiang was one of them. Although many years had passed, he still remembered their previous friendship. After old Xiang died, he wanted to take care of the Xiang family. However, after investigating, he found that Xiang Jin's husband was not bad, so he let it go. In the end, it was all an illusion. Chapter 177. Grandfather Tang immediately sent someone to investigate again. Xiang Jin, on the other hand, felt much more relaxed after receiving his promise. She felt like the gloomy clouds that had been pressing down on her head for so many years had dispersed in an instant. Thank you, little sister. Don't worry, I'll definitely. Little slut, what are you dawdling outside for? You can't even keep a person here. What use are you? I'm hungry. Hurry and come back to cook for me. Xiang Jin hadn't finished speaking when the old lady's insults came through the door. Jing Yunjiao's brows twitched, only to see Xiang Jin clenching her fists, her eyes bursting with hatred. I'll go in first, Uncle Ga on you. Xiang Jin's brows loosened. Now, she could see that there was some cleanliness. Since your problem has been solved for you, then I won't take care of this patient anymore. Songbai said directly. These days, the ruckus made him restless. Originally, he wanted to bring Jing Yunjiao here to learn, but who knew that this old lady would be even fiercer than before? However, looking at Jing Yunjiao's previous attitude, it was clear that he also had confidence in that illness. His standard wasn't inferior to his Xiang Jin didn't insist on keeping them here. After sending off Jing Yunjiao and Songbai, she returned to her house alone. Not long after, the insults came one after another. The neighbors didn't care. After all, it was like this every day. Only, they didn't know that this time, the old lady's insults were because Xiang Jin ignored her. Her waist wasn't good, and when it was serious, she couldn't move. When Xiang Jin returned home, she directly locked the door and entered her own house. The old lady was still hung on the sofa. She didn't cook, and the medicine wasn't boiled like before. It was as if the old lady didn't even exist in the house. This angered the old lady to death. She only yelled for a few hours, but Xiang Jin didn't move. Her phone wasn't by her side, so she couldn't call her son. Due to her anger, her body became more and more uncomfortable. She couldn't move at all. Her whole body was itchy, and there were many scratches on her body. At this time, the old lady was somewhat regretful. There were many ways to torment Xiang Jin, but she should have recovered first. On the other side, the old man's speed was very fast. Qin Ji Shui's company was under pressure from Ning City's tycoon. Songbai was worried about Xiang Jin, so he specially sent Jing Yunjiao over to take a look. As a result, he was completely stunned when he entered the room. Xiang Jin had been tortured by the Qin family for a few years, and the resentment in her heart was not small. Now that she had rebounded, in just a few days, she had tortured the old lady until she was no longer human. At this time, the old lady was still lying on the sofa. When she saw Jing Yunjiao, she opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. Her hoarse voice couldn't make any sound. There were only some fruit pits in front of her. They must have been placed on the table a long time ago, and the old lady happened to come across them. Did I scare you? When Xiang Jin saw her, the hostility in her eyes lessened a little. Jing Yunjiao shook his head. It's okay, but if she starves to death, you'll be the one to suffer. The old lady must have been living on the fruits in front of her for the past few days. She ate, drank, and defecated in the living room. She was weak and sick. If she died, Xiang Jin would definitely be responsible. However, Jing Yunjiao didn't sympathize with this old lady. If it was her, she would have done it under the condition of protecting herself. Don't worry, Qin Ji Shui will be back today because I've already informed him of my divorce. Speaking of divorce, Xiang Jin's eyes flashed with joy. Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips. No wonder her dressing today was different from before. It was as if she had regained her vitality. She was dressed appropriately, without the sloppy, decadent, and busy feeling from before. Presumably, these past few days were the most relaxed she had been in years. The smell in the house was heavy. Xiang Jin dragged her to sit on a chair in the neighborhood for a while. Not long after, a man rushed out of a car. When he saw Xiang Jin, he said, "Are you crazy? Do you know how busy I've been recently? Finding trouble for me at this time? Do you still want to take care of your mother?" Chapter 178. The man's appearance was very upright. He was in his 30s and looked mature and steady. His clothes were neat and tidy, not a single hair out of place. His appearance was extremely gentle, indeed the type that easily attracted women. However, right now, his anxious and angry appearance was exposed, making him look a little sinister. When he got closer, he could even smell the scent of alcohol. Qin Ji Shui thought that the person sitting with his wife was a child from the neighborhood, but upon closer inspection, she looked very unfamiliar. He didn't place her in his eyes at all. Xiang Jin glared at Qin Ji Shui with eyes full of hatred and said sharply, "You've received the divorce agreement. Since that's the case, sign it. Otherwise, don't blame me for taking this to court." "You really dare? Xiang Jin, have I indulged you for too long? All these years, I've worked so hard outside. Wasn't it all for you and my mother to have a stable life? Now you're asking for a divorce? What right do you have? Why don't you think about it? With your current appearance, are you worthy of me? If it weren't for me remembering our old relationship, you would have been chased out of the house long ago. And your mother too. I pay such a large sum of money for you every month. Isn't that enough? Qin Jishui said angrily. However, after speaking, he realized that the wife in front of him seemed to have changed. Previously, every time he came back, Xiang Jin would be cooking most of the time. She wore loose clothes and had unkempt hair and a dirty face. Looking at her made him want to vomit. Compared to those women outside, Xiang Jin didn't have any redeeming qualities. But today, she had light makeup on her face and her long hair was tied up neatly. She wore a pair of small leather shoes and her previous professional attire. Although the style was very old-fashioned, it had a different kind of charm on her. Qin Jishui shook his head inwardly. Why was he thinking about this? He must have been too busy recently. That's why he thought that Xiang Jin looked better than before. Xiang Jin had already experienced her most desperate times. Qin Jishui's words couldn't arouse her anger at all. Instead, it made her feel that she was really blind back then. Qin Jishui, you relied on my Xiang family's assets to get to where you are today, yet you're standing here telling me that everything I have is because of you. Don't you find it ironic? Xiang Jin mocked, then continued, I asked you to come here to inform you that I'm definitely getting a divorce. I don't want to talk nonsense with you, crazy woman. Where's my mother? Qin Jishui glared at her in annoyance. He didn't believe that she really wanted a divorce at all. Instead, he felt disdain. Your mother? Huh. Fortunately, you came in time today. If you were a few days later, I reckon you can only collect her corpse. Xiang Jin sneered. With that said, Qin Jishui went upstairs without another word. Xiang Jin wasn't in a hurry. She just waited below. Seeing Qin Shuiji's nervous expression, she felt even more delighted. When the starving old madam saw Qin Jishui, tears overflowed from her eyes. She whimpered, but her throat felt like it was on fire and she couldn't speak. However, this silent accusation was even more useful, as it increased Qin Jishui's hatred towards Xiang Jin by another layer. However, Qin Jishui was used to living a good life these past few years. Seeing his own mother in such a sorry state, he still felt a little disdainful. The filth on her body made him feel disgusted. He was a man. How could he do such a thing? So after pouring a glass of water for the old lady, Qin Jishui walked down again. He stared at Xiang Jin and directly raised his hand. The air seemed to have frozen. Xiang Jin's pupils instantly shrunk, but she had already calmed down. As long as he made a move, she would immediately go and examine the injury. However, the situation she expected didn't happen. Before that hand landed on Xiang Jin, Jing Yunjiao had already sent a backhand slap towards the man. I hate men who hit women the most. Chapter 179. Perhaps a few years ago, this Qin Jishui could still be considered a positive, kind, and gentle young man. But after he schemed against his own wife, his bottom line and principles became dispensable. He'd even completely developed into a selfish hypocrite. Jing Yunjiao made her move. Her strength wasn't any less than a man's, and Qin Jishui was immediately flung into the air, spinning in a circle. He was stunned for a few seconds, then in the next moment, it was as if he wanted to eat Jing Yunjiao up. You dare hit me? He'd been rolling around in the business world all these years. Although he was busy, his starting point was high, so his days were unrestrained. His company was small, and although he couldn't climb up to those big shots in Ning City, he was still considered a rather famous young entrepreneur. When others saw him, they'd always treat him with respect. But these few days, unlucky things happened one after another. His company was mysteriously found to have problems, and the projects he was currently working on couldn't be developed anymore. Those partners had always seen the strong and stepped on the weak. Once they saw that he wasn't doing well, those who should withdraw their investments did so, and there were even some who didn't even pick up his calls. Everything happened too quickly. He even suspected that he'd offended someone. You live in this small district? Who are your parents? How did they raise such a child with no upbringing like you? Qin Jishui immediately raged. When Xiang Jin heard this, she didn't wait for Jing Yunjiao to speak and immediately shielded her behind her. You don't need to find trouble with her. You deserve to be hit. I say, why did you suddenly change so much? Was it this little girl and her parents who instigated you? In this world, There'll always be people who can't bear to see others doing well, meddling in other people's business. Xiang Jin, I'm warning you. I can let you off this time, but you must immediately make this little girl scram far, far away. Go back to the house and tidy up my mother. I let you return to Huaning County for my mother, but you actually bullied her to this extent. Qin Jishui continued, believing himself to be infallible. Xiang Jin didn't have the slightest bit of reluctance towards him. When she heard this, she simply turned around and left. Bully? She had been insulted all these years. Who was the one who bullied who? If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't want to cause trouble for the Tang family and Jing Yunjiao, she would have fiercely kicked up a fuss and made Qin Jishui regret his actions. However, right now, she had to rely on others for everything, so she didn't have the confidence or the ability to do so. But one day, she would rely on herself and make Qin Jishui understand that taking advantage of her Xiang family meant he had to pay it back 1,000 times, 10,000 times over. Xiang Jin raised her head and puffed out her chest. Her gaze was firm. She had already called the people sent by Grandfather Tang. Now, as long as she left this neighborhood, Qin Jishui would no longer be able to control her. Qin Jishui didn't expect Xiang Jin's temper to be so bad. In a fit of anger, he hurriedly contacted his people in the hospital and tried to use Xiang Jin's mother as a threat. However, the moment the call connected, the person on the other end told him that someone had already moved Mother Xiang away. Qin Jishui was dumbfounded. The Xiang family didn't have any relatives, so who did it? Xiang Jin? However, she had always been in Huaning County and didn't have much money on her. How could she have the ability? Moreover, he hadn't heard the slightest bit of news these past few days. Qin Jishui wasn't an idiot. When he recalled the setbacks he'd suffered recently, a chill ran down his spine. Did Xiang Jin know someone he couldn't afford to offend? But after so many years, he hadn't seen anyone speak up for Xiang Jin. Why would they suddenly appear? Qin Jishui hurriedly chased after her, but when he reached the entrance of the neighborhood, he saw that Xiang Jin had already gotten into the car. He could vaguely see that other than the driver, there was only a young man inside the car. However, that car was a luxurious limited edition, worth tens of millions. How could an ordinary family afford it? And the person sitting inside the car was precisely Tang Zihua. Chapter 180. Jing Yunjiao also didn't expect Grandfather Tang to value Xiang Jin so much that he'd actually let his precious grandson pick her up personally. Tang Zihua sat in the front passenger seat and looked at Jing Yunjiao through the rearview mirror. She didn't seem to be affected by the summer as her skin was still white and tender. Under this kind of temperature that would make people irritable, her slightly cold face could always make people's moods calm down a bit. Auntie Xiang, Grandfather will help you handle the divorce matter. When the time comes, you just have to show your face, Tang Zihua said in a weak voice. His complexion now was actually not much different from a normal person's, but after all, his foundation wasn't too good, so he still had to continue nurturing it. Xiang Jin was a little nervous. Thank you. She was too anxious at the time, and actually didn't expect Chairman Tang to help. After all, although her father and Chairman Tang had a good relationship in the past, it had already been so many years. You're too polite. Grandfather said that the person you should thank should be Jing Yunjiao. If it wasn't for her, the Tang family wouldn't have known that you suffered so much in Huaning County. Oh right, Grandfather asked me to arrange a house for you. You can stay there for the time being. If you want to return to Ning City in the future, just let him know and he'll pick a new place for you. Tang Zihua knew when to advance and retreat, speaking like an adult. Jing Yunjiao didn't notice Tang Zihua's slightly stiff expression. Recently, Grandfather saw that his health was getting better and better, so he would constantly praise Jing Yunjiao in front of him, causing him to feel a sense of reverence whenever he saw Jing Yunjiao. He always felt that he should be more mature and steady. So when he finished speaking just now, Tang Zihua took the opportunity to carefully glance at her again. When he saw that Jing Yunjiao's gaze was wandering outside the window, he sighed in relief. After being treated by Jing Yunjiao for so long, he'd seen her stern expression many times. Every time he saw her, he felt like he was meeting his parents. But Jing Yunjiao was clearly the same age as him. This was too strange. Tang Zihua sent Xiang Jin all the way to the house she'd settled in. Everything was perfect. Over at Qin Ji Shue's side, he was in a terrible fix. With Xiang Jin running away, there was no one to take care of the old lady. Qin Ji Shue had no choice but to ask the neighbors for help. When the neighbors saw how much he despised his own mother, they were naturally unhappy. However, Qin Ji Shue had money, so he immediately took out a few banknotes and settled the old lady down. But how could it work if they only dealt with the surface problems? He had to worry about the old lady's basic necessities, food, shelter, and transportation. Also, her illness had to be treated. After careful consideration, Qin Ji Shue brought the old lady back to Ning City. There was a nanny there, which could save him a lot of trouble. But in reality, the bitter days had only just begun. 3 days later, Qin Ji Shue learned of a shocking fact. Someone saw that he was being rebuffed everywhere and finally gave him a piece of advice. The moment he opened his mouth, he actually asked him to bring Xiang Jin back. Qin Ji Shue had long guessed that this matter was related to Xiang Jin, but he still couldn't take it. He hurriedly asked for more details, and only then did he find out that his father-in-law, who had died early, was actually Grandfather Tang's good friend. Qin Shueji immediately knew that he was finished. Even if he begged all the big shots in Ning City, it was impossible to change the outcome of his company going bankrupt. What should they do? Could it be that he had to find Xiang Jin? A real man knows when to yield and when not to yield. On the day he received the news, after much deliberation, Qin Ji Shue still chose between his dignity and his company. He rushed back from Ning City overnight, but he didn't know where Xiang Jin was. After asking the security guards and the neighbors several times, he only knew that the little girl with his wife was the granddaughter of a doctor. As for that doctor, he was extremely famous in Huaning County. Qin Ji Shue's reaction was extremely fast. After all these years, he'd also trained himself to be thick-skinned. As soon as the sun rose, he rushed straight to the county hospital. Chapter 181. Gong Songbai was very famous in the county hospital. Qin Shueji wanted to find him, so after asking around a little, he immediately found the consultation room. Seeing the old man's amiable appearance, Qin Shueji let out a sigh of relief. He already had a faint feeling of victory in his heart. He immediately stepped forward and shook hands. "Hello, you must be Gong Songbai, Dr. Gong?" Gong Songbai was stunned, but there were many people who came to find him these past few years, so he didn't find it strange. He only nodded politely. "Is there something you need from me?" This person didn't have a number. Although his complexion wasn't too good, looking at his anxious appearance, he obviously wasn't here to see a doctor. At this moment, there were still several patients waiting in the consultation room. Qin Shueji saw them and felt more confident. His expression became slightly more serious. "Dr. Gong, I finally found you. I really didn't expect that a reputable and capable old doctor like you would do such a thing. I asked you to treat my old mother, but look at you. You almost killed her. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" As soon as these words were spoken, the faces of the surrounding patients immediately changed. This Gong family was a family with a heritage of doctors. They were very famous in Huaning County. The county hospital spent a lot of money to invite Gong Songbai to come and treat patients, giving him a lot of freedom. He was more or less different from other doctors. Because of his great reputation, there were many people who wanted Dr. Gong to treat them, causing his #1 consultation room to be hard to come by. But even so, Gong Songbai was still the most popular doctor in the county hospital. The others were also used to seeing patients' families give Dr. Gong silk banners and awards, but this was the first time they saw someone say that he almost killed someone. "What are you saying? Slander is illegal." The young doctor at the side immediately said, "I'm not talking nonsense. Dr. Gong, you wouldn't deny that you've treated my mother, right? I'm Qin Jigua. Xiang Jin is my wife. Everyone in our neighborhood knows that you come to our house every 2 to 3 days. You can't deny this debt." Qin Ji Shue's words were clear and organized. Although he was looking for trouble, he wasn't anxious at all. This appearance instead gave others the illusion that he was very reasonable. In addition to his dignified appearance, his suit and tie were neat and tidy, and he looked refined. It was easy for people to believe him. Gong Songbai didn't expect this person to be Xiang Jin's husband, Qin Ji Shue. But seeing his actions and recalling Xiang Jin's words, His impression of this man instantly fell to the bottom. Originally, he thought that his patient had really met with an accident, but now he couldn't wait to throw this person out. I did treat your mother's illness and prescribed her medicine, but your mother didn't take my medical advice to heart. She didn't take the medicine on time at all. Furthermore, I only treated her a few days ago. That day, I had already made it clear that I wouldn't continue to treat her. Furthermore, the consultation fee has already been refunded. Furthermore, your mother's waist bone problem isn't life-threatening. Grandpa Gon said angrily. Such a thick-skinned person was really rare. Xiang Jin, that girl, must have been blind in the past to actually fall for this kind of man. But looking at his recent actions, Gon Songbai could imagine how this man with a human face but a beast's heart treated Xiang Jin in the past. If he could even use his own wife, what kind of character did he have? After all, old man Gon still had some dignity. Once he opened his mouth to explain, his colleagues nodded in understanding. But now that Qin Zhixue had come knocking on their door, others didn't know the truth, so it wasn't good for them to interfere. Although the doctors and nurses understood Gon Songbai's character, the patients were different. After hearing Qin Zhixue's words, they were more or less afraid and nervous. Even though old man Gon had opened his mouth to explain, they still felt a little uncomfortable. Chapter 182. Qin Zhixue only had this path left, and he was already driven to desperation. Since he'd already come, he'd already prepared his speech, so how could he be dismissed by the old man's words? Dr. Gon, I respect you a lot, but it's clearly the medicine you prescribed that isn't effective, so how can you blame it on my mother? After my mother contracted that illness, her whole body itched uncomfortably and she more or less had a temper. But you, on the other hand, not only did you not take on the responsibility of saving the dying and healing the injured, you even used your glib tongue to coax my wife, making her ignore my mother. My mother's condition isn't good, so after being placed on the sofa for a few days, she almost starved to death, and her illness got worse and worse. Seeing that you're also a reputable doctor, I didn't look for you to settle the debt, but you're great. You actually abducted my wife. No matter what, I can't tolerate this. If you don't give me an explanation today, don't blame me for making a fuss about it. After Qin Zhishue's words, the surrounding people widened their eyes in disbelief. Dr. Gon abducted his wife? What kind of joke was this? This Dr. Gon Songbai was already so old. How could he possibly do such a thing? What's more, no matter what kind of patient he treated, Dr. Gon had always been extremely meticulous in his care. It was impossible for him to lie to others and disregard a patient. It was just that Qin Zhishue's righteous words and the suppressed anger were all displayed on his face, making it impossible for people to not believe him. When Gon Songbai heard this, his chest heaved up and down in anger, and he almost fainted. All his life, he'd only heard respectful words from others. This was the first time someone had accused him of having no medical ethics in front of so many people. You scoundrel, scram. Under Gon Songbai's rage, he directly picked up the things on the table and threw them at him. His old face was taut and stern as he panted heavily. He simply couldn't stand this kind of slander. However, he was still a medical practitioner and didn't like to socialize with others. In terms of eloquence, he naturally couldn't compare to Qin Zhixue, a young man who'd been in the business world for many years. With just the word scoundrel, he was already at a disadvantage. Qin Zhixue was delighted. He had heard from the old lady that Xiang Jin did not see many outsiders. Most of her social circle was her neighbors. Other than that, the only people she had been in contact with recently were the old man and his granddaughter. Moreover, old Madame Tang had clearly mentioned that the old man had called Xiang Jin out on the day of the treatment. He had talked for a long time, and she could vaguely hear them saying things like, Elder Tang and good friend. It was also on that day that Xiang Jin had started to ignore her after returning to the room. Therefore, the reason why he had fallen into such a situation was ultimately the fault of this old man and his granddaughter. He wanted to find Xiang Jin now. If he used ordinary methods, it would definitely not work. This old man might even humiliate him. Rather than that, it would be better to say that his wife had been deceived and ruined the old man's reputation. He did not believe that the old man would not reveal Xiang Jin's whereabouts in order to protect himself. Qin Ji Shui's calculations were crystal clear. Now that he saw that Gan Songbai's anger wasn't light, he added fuel to the fire and continued. Old doctor, you're also an old man. You should have children, right? Even if you don't care about your reputation, I believe that your family still cares about it. What's more, you also had a mother, right? Don't you know that children are filial to their mothers? I don't blame you for not being willing to treat my mother, but you should have just said it. Why did you have to brainwash my wife and make her do such a thing? Luckily, my mother was fine, or else I would have become a person without a mother. My mother put in so much effort to raise me, yet she ended up like that. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Chapter 183. Qin Ji Shui's voice wasn't loud. Compared to other people making a ruckus, his state was more like a simple accusation. However, every word was like a knife stabbing into Gan Songbai's heart, causing him to feel waves of pain in his head. Dr. Gan, please calm down. I'll call the director over right now. The nurse at the side panicked and hurriedly ran out. Qin Ji Shui didn't let go and continued with a serious face. Call him then. I also want to see the director of your hospital. Don't tell me you all allow doctors to do such immoral things. Oh right, Dr. Gan, where did you hide my wife? I beg you to be merciful and let our family go. Bastard. Simply unreasonable. Gan Songbai slammed the table in anger, his face turning green. You're clearly the one abusing your wife. Before he could finish speaking, Qin Ji Shui directly interrupted. How am I abusing my wife? I just had some small conflicts with her recently. You can't do such immoral things just because of this. Qin Ji Shui only felt refreshed at this moment. Recently, because of the company's matters, he had been criticized everywhere. Every day, he would be despised and humiliated. Now that he saw the main culprit behind all this, he naturally couldn't let him off so easily. Gan Songbai wanted to explain, but the other party completely blocked his words and even wanted to accuse him of a crime. This made him even more anxious and angry. He also felt extremely sullen. Ever since he left that small district that day, he hadn't seen Xiang Jin again. He didn't know that old Madame Qin had almost starved to death. Because he knew that the Tang family had interfered in this matter, he also put his heart back into his stomach. He only asked Jing Yunjiao to go over and show some concern. He didn't contact that junior himself. But who would have thought that such an unexpected disaster would suddenly appear? At this moment, he couldn't defend himself. The outside of the consultation room was filled with people. Those people looked at him with eyes full of disdain. This was the first time the old doctor had encountered such a situation. He only felt that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. If it weren't for his old age and weak legs, he would have definitely rushed up and beat this Qin Ji Shui up. However, after thinking it over, Gan Songbai still couldn't think of a way. This matter could only be explained by the parties involved. If this continued, his reputation would be ruined. Gan Songbai shakily picked up his phone and called Jing Yunjiao. At this time, the voices of the patients and their family members outside had changed from whispers to loud accusations. Aya, this old man is a doctor? How can there be such an indecent old man in this world? With such a character, who would dare to seek treatment from him? Don't say that. My friend's uncle's child's classmate was cured by Dr. Gan. I heard that his medical skills are very good. Maybe it's a misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? This man had already come knocking on her door. How could it be a misunderstanding? Just because he's good at medicine doesn't mean that he's good in other aspects. He's old, but he's still destroying other people's families. Not only did he kidnap people, but he also almost starved their old mother to death. Tell me, if we don't give that person justice, is there still justice? As soon as the director arrived, he heard people pointing and cursing at him. He felt sweat dripping down his forehead. The weather was already hot, and now that such a thing happened, it made it even harder for people to breathe. Everyone stop arguing? What's going on? Sir, if you casually slander us, we'll pursue your legal responsibility. The young director's eyes flickered. After he entered, his words carried a bit of guilt. Hearing the heated discussions outside, how would he know who was right and who was wrong in this matter? Chapter 184. Seeing that the director's attitude wasn't firm enough, Qin Jishui persisted. Of course it's true. I still can't find my wife, so he must have hidden her at home. With this, the director's attitude became hesitant. His tough words earlier were only to save the hospital's face and trick this man. But now, the other party didn't take the bait at all, so it could be seen that he had confidence in himself. Moreover, everyone was saying that 3 men make a tiger. Even if it was fake, it would become real. Also, if Gong Songbai was really innocent, why would others accuse him? The director's heart turned 1,000 times, already simulating the way to deal with this matter in his mind. What do you think about this? Let's close the door first and talk things out in private. The director smiled apologetically at Qin Jishui. With these words, Gong Songbai's face also turned ugly. What was the meaning of closing the door? Even if this matter was settled, the hospital would be relieved. But what about him? Wouldn't no one believe his reputation? No. Say it in front of everyone. Dr. Gan's face turned green with anger. Luckily, he was a doctor and usually maintained his health. Otherwise, if he was angered by this Qin Jishui, he might have directly rolled his eyes. He wanted to see if there was any justice in this world. How could he make a mistake when he helped someone? That Xiang Jin was tortured so miserably by this Qin Jishui, yet he still dared to run to the hospital and cause a ruckus. He didn't treat that unreasonable old thing, old Madame Qin, and was even said to have no medical ethics. If medical ethics meant not being able to differentiate between right and wrong, then what kind of illness could he treat? He might as well wash his hands in a new basin and quit. Gong Songbai's anger reached its peak, and he was also a little depressed. How could he not know that there were very few so-called pure and kind patients in this world? It was just that when he treated patients, he mostly saw the patient's painful side. Why would he care about their moral character or what good or bad they've done in the past? It was his duty to help patients get rid of their pain. This wasn't wrong. Even if there were some patients who didn't know any better or were extremely vicious, he could still understand and treat them calmly. After all, there weren't many pure and kind people in this world. But at the same time, there weren't any pure and evil people. But this old lady was different. She had been to that neighborhood 4 or 5 times, and every time she went, the other party would look like they wanted to eat her alive. They spoke without thinking, but she tolerated it and continued to take his pulse and write his prescription. He did not expect the old lady to be grateful. After all, he had taken the consultation fee. But at the very least, the other party should have some respect. The old lady did not take the medicine he prescribed on time, or even did not use it at all. He asked her not to take spicy food or seafood, but the old lady did not listen, causing her to itch more and more. In the end, he tried his best to cure the old lady, but the old lady did not believe him at all. She made the decision to use the anti-itch ointment he bought from the market. How could they use the same medicine for different diseases? How could he continue to treat someone who knew such common sense? Rather than saying that he was taking his anger out on the old lady out of sympathy for Xiang Jin, it would be better to say that the old lady had worn out his patience. Even a quack doctor would have a bit of a temper. He, Gong Songbai, could be considered a famous doctor. How could he still smile and greet people at his beck and call? He wasn't a living bodhisattva. The old man was so angry that his mind was a bit muddled. He originally hoped that the director would clarify the matter, but he didn't expect that the moment he opened his mouth, he was already siding with the other party. His heart was half cold. He only hoped that that girl, Jing Yunjiao, would bring Xiang Jin over and clarify the matter in front of everyone. The old man was unwilling to resolve the matter in private. The people outside were satisfied with their gossipy hearts. They also started to kick up a fuss. This is a major matter that involves a human life. You have to be open about it. Otherwise, who would dare to seek treatment from this old man in the future? Chapter 185. Gong Songbai supported himself on the table, his old bones trembling. The director sighed, thinking that Gong Songbai didn't know how to appreciate favors. This director's surname was Liu, the grandson of the hospital's director. The director was also someone who studied traditional Chinese medicine, but because Western medicine developed quickly, his children and grandchildren all dabbled in both. However, this director Liu was still young and only had some foundation in traditional Chinese medicine. Because of his family background, he had long become complacent and thought that he was amazing. Let's talk about it openly then. Director Liu nodded irritably. He rubbed his eyes and glanced at Qin Jishui, saying, "This big brother, I don't think you're an unreasonable person. How do you want to resolve this matter?" Qin Jishui was elated, but his expression didn't change as he replied, "Director, you're still the most reasonable one. I'm just seeking justice for myself. If your mother was left at home and starved to death, or if your wife ran away with an old man, you'd also be anxious." As he spoke, Director Liu's expression turned ugly. Cough cough, I'm just giving an example. Director, please don't be angry. Qin Jishui smiled apologetically, then continued, I don't have any requests. Just let him apologize to me in front of everyone, admit that his medical ethics are lacking, and guarantee that he won't treat other patients like this in the future. Also, return my wife to me, and this matter will be over. That's it? Director Liu was a little surprised. He thought that Qin Jishui was here to ask for money. However, he couldn't help but admit that this was the best solution. It was just an apology. It wasn't a big deal. Even a big hospital like theirs would have times when they made mistakes during operations. Usually, at this time, the patient's family would make a fuss, and the small hospital would step in to protect the patient. If the situation got out of hand, the doctor would come out to apologize or directly fire the doctor, and this matter would be resolved. No matter what, an apology was better than spending money. If this matter could be resolved with just a few words, why would there be a need for additional losses? Director Liu, what do you mean by that? That's it? Don't tell me you think his request isn't too much? Gong Songbai couldn't believe that these words came out of Director Liu's mouth. He had a good relationship with the director of this hospital, but Director Liu was ambitious and didn't want to just open a small clinic. Moreover, his family had had some money, so he founded this hospital when he was young and slowly expanded it until it reached its current state. Later on, Dean Liu invited him over. What he was interested in was not the salary, but something else. He wanted to get in touch with more patients, and he also wanted to see what level the other doctors in the hospital were at. But he didn't expect that Dean Liu would raise such a grandson. Instead of asking for the truth, he asked for the other party's request right off the bat. From his tone, it was as if he felt that the other party was asking for too little. At this time, Director Liu was also a little impatient. He had never been optimistic about this kind of stubborn old man. He thought that he was a role model just because he had some medical skills, but in fact, he was just putting on an act. To put it nicely, national healers were profound and unfathomable. To put it bluntly, they were just bluffing. It wasn't as if he had never learned it before. Dr. Gong, they've already come looking for you. If you don't apologize, are you going to drag the hospital down with you? The other party didn't ask you to do anything. As long as you say something and lower your status, this matter will be settled. Besides, that's someone else's wife after all. You and someone else's wife. Slap. Before Director Liu could finish his words, Gong Songbai gave him a tight slap across the face. Who do you think you are? Even your grandfather wouldn't talk to me like that. You want me to apologize? I didn't do anything wrong, so why should I apologize? Chapter 186. Gong Songbai was truly enraged. He already knew that Qin Jishui wasn't a good person, so although he was angry, he couldn't disregard his body for this bastard. But this Director Liu was considered human, right? Moreover, he'd watched this brat grow up. Although they drifted apart after they grew up, his relationship with Director Liu wasn't bad. Since when was it his grandson's turn to point fingers? Qin Jishui made him so angry that he gnashed his teeth in hatred, but this Director Liu made him feel heartache. This was someone who studied medicine. When he was young, his grandfather and father had always taught him how to be a good person first, followed by medical skills. Director Liu's attitude was simply slandering his character. If he had to admit that he had no medical ethics to speak of, he might as well take his old life. Director Liu covered his face and glared at Gong Songbai. Seeing him act like an elder, he didn't have much confidence, but more than that, he was angry. No matter what, he was still a director and would inherit this hospital in the future. Gong Songbai slapped his face in front of so many people that was throwing his face. How was he going to establish his prestige in the future? Dr. Gone, don't be unable to differentiate good from bad. This matter of yours has already seriously tarnished our hospital's reputation. We can ask for compensation from you, but seeing that you're old, we won't be so ruthless. Today, you'll find this person's wife, then properly apologize to him and me. Then, we'll consider this matter closed. Is this so difficult? Director Liu roared. Qin Ji Shui's mood improved a lot. He thought that this matter wouldn't be so easy to resolve after finding a leader who knew that this young director would be such a godly assistant and actually helped him quarrel with Gon Songbai. Gon Songbai was so angry that he couldn't speak. After all, he was already old. Even if he did take care of his health, he still couldn't stand being tormented like this. Suddenly, he felt dizzy and his head hurt even more. He pointed a trembling finger at Director Liu. Sweeping his gaze around, he saw Qin Ji Shui's lips curl into a cold smile. He couldn't hold on any longer and fell back onto the chair with a thump. In an instant, the surrounding people panicked and hurried forward to save him. Director Liu frowned, thinking that Gon Songbai was acting with him. When he hit him just now, he used so much strength. How could he be this weak? He must have wanted to avoid responsibility, so he deliberately used a scheme. Unfortunately, Qin Ji Shui didn't give up. You really fainted at the right time. But no matter what, your hospital must give me an explanation today. When Director Liu heard this, he said angrily, "Get out of the way. Dr. Gon, everyone knows that your body has always been in good health. Stop pretending now. Even if you continue to pretend, this matter will still have to be resolved later. If you continue to make a fuss and refuse to apologize, I can only represent the hospital to fire you. However, even if you leave, you still have to resolve this mess. Otherwise, you will have to compensate." Chief Surgeon Liu spoke without stopping. The doctors who were familiar with Dr. Gon in the consultation room had extremely ugly expressions on their faces. Chief Surgeon Liu was President Liu's grandson. How could he be so unreasonable? How could the elderly in the hospital stay? If he really inherited the hospital in the future, they probably wouldn't have a place to stay. There was also Dr. Gon, who suffered such a disaster for no reason. When Jing Yunjiao and Xiang Jin rushed to the hospital, what they saw was this kind of scene. Gon Songbai collapsed on the chair, his face deathly pale. The people around him all had hesitant and worried expressions. Some were extremely ill at ease, and some looked like they were watching a show. She simply couldn't imagine that Grandpa Gon would be bullied to this extent. "Dr. Gon, you're still not listening to me, are you? If you continue like this, I won't leave you any face." Dr. Liu saw that Gon Songbai didn't move at all and continued stubbornly. "Shut up." Jing Yunjiao directly rushed in. Chapter 187. Jing Yunjiao squeezed out of the crowd and kicked the annoying director to the side. In the next moment, she hurried to Gon Songbai's side. Feeling his pulse, it was rapid and his blood was overflowing. Hurriedly, she pulled down her backpack and reached inside. Jing Yunjiao took out a piece of ginseng from her space and stuffed it into the old man's mouth. Following that, she pressed a few acupoints on the old man's body. The spirit jade didn't mention acupuncture yet. Otherwise, it would definitely have a miraculous effect. At this moment, Jing Yunjiao's actions were strange, but the doctors in the room saw through it. They had also seen Jing Yunjiao before. Dr. Gon had said that this was his adopted granddaughter and that she was a medical genius. However, at that time, they more or less despised her. After all, she was just a little girl. How many years could she learn medicine? What kind of genius was she? But now that they saw it, they were shocked. Although this Jing Yunjiao's methods were a bit inexperienced, her technique was extremely good. Not to mention the accuracy of the acupoints. After being pressed by her, old man Gon's complexion improved a lot. His breathing became more even, and his eyelids moved, as if he was about to wake up. However, although they recognized those acupoints, they didn't know this kind of method to save people. Now that they saw it with their own eyes, some people with decent medical skills understood a bit and couldn't help but admire her in their hearts. On the other hand, Director Liu, who had been kicked aside by Jing Yunjiao, crawled up in a sorry state. He pointed at Jing Yunjiao and angrily said, "Whose daughter is this?" Does she have any upbringing? Qin Jishui had seen Jing Yunjiao before and hurriedly said, Director Liu, I know her. She's this old man's granddaughter. She's a little indecent girl who helped her grandfather kidnap my wife. When Jing Yunjiao received the old man's call, she already knew that something big had happened. Without a second word, she asked Xiang Jin to accompany her over. They also didn't think that this man would be so shameless as to find trouble with the old man. At this moment, Xiang Jin restrained herself. Jing Yunjiao was still treating Gong Songbai, so now wasn't the time to quarrel. It was better for her to look for an opportunity to stand out. Qin Jishui kept staring at this pair of old and young, so he didn't notice Xiang Jin standing in the crowd. Jing Yunjiao ignored the two of them. His cold appearance made people unable to get close to him. A few minutes later, the old man slowly woke up and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. His turbid eyes were bloodshot and his hands were trembling. Girl, you're here. The old man was starting to regret his decision. He shouldn't have allowed Jing Yunjiao to bring Xiang Jin over to clarify the matter. This person was worse than a beast. Jing Yunjiao was just a little girl, and Xiang Jin was just a married woman. How could they deal with this kind of scoundrel? Grandpa, you should rest first. I'll handle this matter. Trust me. Jing Yunjiao's voice was low and cold. After speaking, he turned to look at Director Liu and Qin Jishui. A trace of killing intent flashed through his eyes. Two grown men bullying an old man. You guys really have the heart to do this. I thought you guys were just heartless, but now it seems that you guys don't even have any sense of shame. Qin Jishui, you've been living like a dog for the past few decades. Stealing your wife's family's property and threatening your wife for so many years isn't enough. Now you even extend your hand to the hospital. What makes me laugh even more is that there are actually people who dare to believe this kind of nonsense that inverts black and white and is full of loopholes. I've really witnessed a drama where right and wrong can't be distinguished, where good and evil can't be distinguished. I really admire the cold hearts of everyone here. To think that there's even my grandfather's patient among you guys. You can even look at your savior with cold eyes. It's impossible for a junior like me to not feel disgusted. Chapter 188. At this moment, Jing Yunjiao was extremely disgusted with this group of people in front of him. If these people were completely unrelated, it would have been fine. After all, everyone had a gossipy heart. It wasn't wrong for them to not be able to differentiate between right and wrong. But Grandpa Gong had worked in this hospital for decades. Could it be that not a single person understood him? Among them were his former patients or current patients. There were also colleagues who had received his guidance, yet they couldn't lend a helping hand at the crucial moment. Although there were indeed people who were hesitant to save him, they ultimately didn't. It wasn't as if they didn't know that older people's endurance would decrease in all aspects. Every second of delay meant more danger. How could they not understand? They were only thinking about their own interests and were afraid of being dragged down. Jing Yunjiao's words made a few people who were familiar with Dr. Gong's face turn red. They also felt a little guilty. Director Liu was both angry and annoyed. You're Dr. Gong's granddaughter? You're so sharp-tongued, saying that we can't differentiate between right and wrong? It's clearly your grandfather who kidnapped someone else's wife. Oh, right. The person who came to complain just now also said that you were involved, right? Little girl, what you're doing isn't good for your family. I heard Qin Jishui call you Director Liu, right? Jing Yunjiao's expression was cold as he asked. Director Liu paused, then snorted in acknowledgement. Someone with a stomach full of idiots like you can become a director? Nepotism? Did you sleep with the director or the director's wife? Jing Yunjiao didn't show any mercy. Randomly spouting nonsense? Not Qin Jishui. What nonsense are you spouting? You have no respect for your elders and lack of upbringing. Don't think that I won't dare to hit you just because you're a child. Let me tell you, my grandfather is the director of this hospital, and the director's wife is my grandmother. Director Liu said angrily. The other party was obviously a little girl who hadn't reached adulthood yet. He definitely couldn't use force. Moreover, he previously thought that Gong Songbai was faking it, but looking at him now, it was obvious that he was really angered. If something happened to his old bones, he'd have to compensate them later. It wasn't worth it. So that's how it is. Then no wonder an idiot can climb to this stage. Jing Yunjiao paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and continued, as a director, you're in charge of a lot of things. You're also the grandson of the director, so I'm sure you usually participate in the purchase of medical consumables and ingredients in the hospital, right? You're such a biased and self-righteous person. It's easy for your subordinates to deceive you. Who knows, maybe there's something wrong with the things used in the hospital now. For example, the gauze is full of bacteria and the medicine is shoddy. Don't you think so? Director Lu's face turned green. That's slander. Just because you're young doesn't mean you can break the law. I'll hold you accountable on behalf of our hospital. Really? Then what were you doing just now? Qin Ji Shui spread rumors to tarnish my grandfather's reputation. At the very least, you can be considered an accomplice. Besides, what did I say? It's just a guess. Jing Yunjiao said in disgust. Director Lu was so angry that his face turned ugly. He did not expect the little girl to react so quickly. He knew in his heart that he couldn't continue using the hospital as an excuse. After thinking for a bit, he leaned to the side and said, as the director, I have the responsibility to deal with the parasites in the hospital. Your grandfather kidnapped someone else's wife, and now the other party's husband has come knocking on our door. How can it be fake? Immediately, everyone's gaze turned to Qin Ji Shui. Little girl, I beg you, please return my wife to me. I really love her. I can't live without her. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have argued with her before. I promise I'll properly apologize to her when I see her. Okay? Qin Ji Shui immediately acted innocent. Chapter 189. Jing Yunjiao sneered and walked towards Qin Ji Shui, one step at a time. Her figure was thin, but every step she took gave off an invisible pressure. Her eyes were as firm as steel, but also carried a silent darkness, as if she wanted to obliterate the person in front of her. Her gaze pierced straight to the bottom of one's heart, causing one to panic and have goosebumps all over their body. Do animals have the right to talk about love? Jing Yunjiao said coldly. Qin Ji Shui, you and Xiang Jin got married when you were 23. Within 2 years after your marriage, your work wasn't going well. Xiang Jin inherited the family business and became the company's CEO, while you drank yourself to vent your male chauvinism when her father was on his deathbed. Because of this, Xiang Jin brought you into the company and gave you an official position, but you weren't satisfied. When Xiang Jin was pregnant, you conspired with your grandmother to scheme against her, making her sign all kinds of documents, while you emptied the company and replaced her. Not only did you get the company, you made your mother bring your first wife back to live in Huaning County, while you did whatever you wanted in Ning Group. Outsiders all thought you were a good man, but in reality, you're just a scumbag who relies on a woman and refuses to admit it. You used Xiang Jin's mother's illness to threaten her, making her stay at home to serve your grandmother. A rich family's eldest daughter, a company's CEO with high qualifications, was tormented by you until she looked haggard, neither human nor ghost. You finally escaped from the demon's den with great difficulty, yet you still have the cheek to say you love her? Qin Ji Shui didn't expect Jing Yunjiao to find out so much about this matter, and was momentarily speechless. At this moment, Xiang Jin stood up. Everyone, I'm the wife Qin Ji Shui was talking about. Xiang Jin's expression was complicated as she spoke first. Xiang Jin. Jin, I finally found you. Qin Ji Shui was stunned, but in the next second, he immediately pounced over. Xiang Jin didn't hesitate, raising her hand to slap him. Scum, you think I don't know why you're looking for me? Let me tell you, I'll never help you plead with Elder Tang. You've harmed me for so many years, yet you still want to use my connections to help you save the company? Impossible. Xiang Jin's words stated the truth. With Jing Yunjiao laying the groundwork and Xiang Jin's swift counterattack, the onlookers were already starting to get angry. Originally, this matter was a bit strange. The old man was old and looked amiable. How could he be someone who would mess around with relationships? Originally, everyone was just there to join in the fun. They were skeptical, but now that another version had been revealed, it really stimulated their hearts. Could it be that the person they were indulging just now was a beast in human form? Seeing this well-dressed man calling her his wife, Everyone thought that he had suffered a great grievance, but it turned out that he was such a person. Not only did he make use of his wife to achieve success, he even turned his back on her after the deed was done. He even let his wife stay with her evil mother-in-law and be tortured all day long. Now, the reason why he was in such a hurry to find her was to make use of her. Ah, Jean, you've been brainwashed by this old man. What nonsense did he say to you? I'm your husband. Qin Ji Shui glared at her. Aren't they already in the process of divorce? Qin Ji Shui, you really know how to act. It's a pity I didn't realize it back then. Otherwise, even if I didn't marry for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have found a beast like you. Xiang Jin said fiercely, then continued. It's no use even if you waste your energy begging me now. That company has been run by you for so many years. It's already dirty. Now that there's a problem, you deserve it. Oh right, before I came here, I received a call. Right now, someone should have already gone to your villa in Ning City to collect the debt. It's so noisy. Old madam is alone inside. I really don't know how she's doing. Chapter 190. Although Qin Ji Shui's company wasn't small, to the Tang family, it was like a sesame seed and a watermelon. In front of the Tang family, his little business didn't even have the ability to sustain itself. Today's time was enough for a lot of things to happen in Ning City. When Qin Ji Shui heard Xiang Jin mention the old lady, that bit of calmness was somewhat shattered. His eyeballs were about to pop out, as if he wanted to swallow Xiang Jin alive. But he had to endure. It wasn't time to despair yet. Ah, Jean, my mother's health isn't good and she's nostalgic, so I let you accompany her and take care of her for a period of time. But I didn't expect you to harbor so much resentment because of this. I know you're angry, but I'll let you be, okay? As long as you forgive me. Qin Ji Shui's character didn't change as he continued. It's too late. Before saying all this, I advise you to make a call and ask about your company's current situation. Jing Yunzhao reminded coldly from the side. When he said this, Qin Ji Shui's entire face stiffened. Taking out his phone, there were actually dozens of missed calls. It was probably because it was too noisy earlier that he didn't hear them. As soon as he replied, it was as if he was struck by lightning. Gone. Everything was gone. Forced bankruptcy, all the company's assets, and his 2 villas in Ning family were all sealed up. Sealed up? Hearing this, Qin Ji Shui's entire body shook violently. The old lady was still inside, which meant that she was also chased out. Being chased out while facing the accusations of those creditors? Thinking of this, Qin Ji Shui was completely stupefied. He didn't expect everything to happen so quickly. But that was the Tang family. From start to end, the Tang family only expressed one intention, and there were people who took the initiative to clean him up for them. There was no turning back at all. The moment the Tang family thought of this, he was already consigned to eternal damnation. What was laughable was that he was still in Huaning County, thinking that everything would be fine as long as he got Xiang Jin back. Venomous woman. Qin Ji Shui roared fiercely and raised his leg to kick Xiang Jin. However, in the next instant, Xiang Jin was pulled over by Jing Yunzhao. He could only see Jing Yunzhao's figure flashing, moving around the small consultation room with ease. Qin Ji Shui's hand brushed past the back of Qin Ji Shui's hand, and with a kacha sound, a heart-wrenching sound was heard. Qin Ji Shui's elbow then fiercely pressed against the back of Qin Ji Shui's waist and kicked his leg. In the next second, Qin Ji Shui fell to his knees with a thump. That movement was painful to watch. Jing Yunzhao's methods were amazing, but his speed was so fast that it felt like an illusion. Qin Ji Shui knelt on the ground, feeling that his lower back was extremely heavy. He couldn't move at all, and the direction in which he was kneeling was facing Xiang Jin, making him feel even more humiliated. Vicious woman, why did I marry you? Isn't it just a lousy company that made you hold a grudge until now? You're a woman. What qualifications do you have to be better than a man in every aspect? It's for your own good that I let you stay at home to take care of my husband and children. Qin Ji Shui was already somewhat deranged. Thinking about how he'd lost everything at this moment, that feeling of being thrown down from the clouds made him wish he was dead. Why did you marry me? Do you need me to remind you? Back then, your family background wasn't good. When you were in school, You didn't even have any living expenses, yet you spent all the money you had on you to buy me a bouquet of flowers. I felt guilty and returned the money to you, yet you said that I was insulting your dignity. However, everyone knew that you spent the money on me, so I had no other choice but to treat you to a month's worth of meals. Xiang Jin said coldly. Speaking of the past, Xiang Jin suddenly felt that she was really too naive in the past. Perhaps Qin Jishue's ambition had never been small. Chapter 191. Back then, Xiang Jin's grades were good and her looks weren't bad either. There were countless boys who chased after her, but she never had such thoughts. One time, she met Qin Jishue by chance. At that time, she was with a few classmates, while Qin Jishue was on the other side eating bread, drinking cold water, and reading a book. Her friends said that he looked good, but it was a pity that his family background was too poor. She ridiculed him and felt bad about it, so she spoke up for him. After that, it was Qin Jishue's pursuit. At that time, if she knew that speaking up for him would bring about such consequences, she'd rather be the bad guy. Compared to other boys, what Qin Jishue gave her was pitifully little. A bouquet of flowers, and it was such a big deal that everyone knew about it. If she returned the favor, it would seem like she was committing a heinous crime. Moreover, at that time, Qin Jishue's looks weren't bad and his attitude was gentle. She patiently treated him to meals for a month. Now that she thought about it, the food she ate for a month wasn't even on the same level as Qin Jishue's. Qin Jishue's calculations were really deep. A month later, Qin Jishue started to look like he was working hard. He had dark circles under his eyes every day and would fall asleep while walking. There were a few times when he fell down and was battered and exhausted. Everyone thought that he was like this because he was dumped by her and heartbroken. She went to his door to question him, but Qin Jishue told her that he would work hard to study and give her the best life in the future. When they were young, girls of the same age would think that a man who gave his everything to you was deeply in love. She was no different. Only then did she slowly sink into this kind of love. From then on, she paid for Qin Jishue's school fees, living expenses, and bought all his clothes and books for him. During festivals, she would even let him bring all kinds of gifts back to his hometown. Thinking back, other than Qin Jishue's symbolic rejection at the start, he never mentioned it again. Instead, it was as if it was a matter of course. Once she showed that she cared about money, Qin Jishue's attitude changed to one that hurt his pride and wanted to work hard. That look clearly showed that he had her in his grasp. Xiang Jin only felt her whole body turn cold, especially when she thought about the past that she thought was beautiful. She felt that she was hopelessly stupid. When a man who couldn't even feed himself talked about love, could it be true love? At this moment, Xiang Jin's attitude towards Qin Jishue became colder and colder. However, it was different from her previous hatred. Now, there was only disgust and loathing left. Qin Jishue's face was filled with anger as he kept calling her a poisonous woman. His mouth didn't stop. Back then, there were so many people better than you everywhere. Why did I choose you? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have married you even if you begged me on your knees. Xiang Jin, don't think that I don't know. You've always looked down on me. You think I'm not good enough for you, so you use your superiority to suppress me. Xiang Jin shook her head. There was nothing more to say. From today onwards, what awaited Qin Jishue would be days of complete darkness. The onlookers couldn't help but shake their heads. Many of them had poor family backgrounds, but they didn't want their sons to become such a person. If a person didn't even have a conscience and humanity, what was the use of earning so much money? At this moment, Qin Jishue had completely confessed. Director Lu's expression was as if he had eaten a dead fly. Some of the other doctors also looked at him with ridicule and amusement. So it's a misunderstanding. Since it's a misunderstanding, let's just clear it up. Everyone, let's disperse. Security, throw this man out. Dr. Lu waved his hand and said. The moment he said that, the security was obedient and dragged Qin Jishue out. However, the others weren't willing to do so, especially Jing Yunzhao, who reached out and blocked Director Lu's path. Chapter 192. Qin Jishue wasn't a good person, and this Director Lu wasn't any better either. Director Lu, Do you think this matter will be settled with just one sentence from you? Jing Yunzhao said faintly, his ice-cold voice making one's scalp tingle. Director Liu also felt a headache coming on. Actually, he should be protecting Dr. Gan, but he just didn't like this old fellow Gan Songbai. Every time he returned home, his grandfather would always tell him that his medical skills weren't good, and that he must learn from Dr. Gan seriously. This Dr. Gan was a stubborn old man. He was smelly and stubborn, and thought that he was amazing. Who was he trying to scare by pretending to be unfathomable every day? Thus, he wanted to take this opportunity to teach this old man a lesson. Of course, if he could chase him out, that would be the best. What else do you want? Isn't the misunderstanding already resolved? Director Liu said stubbornly. Director Liu wasn't even 30 years old. He wore glasses, but he looked a little impetuous. His gaze was drifting, and his tone was casual. The white coat he wore wasn't very neat, and he looked a little unreliable. Director Liu is young and promising, but I remember that there are requirements to be a chief physician, right? Jing Yunzhao asked without rhyme or reason. There were several hospitals in the county. Although the outside called it a county hospital, it was actually a private one. Its development was a little better than the public one, and it could be considered a marvel. Although the area was large, its scale couldn't be compared to those big cities. But no matter what, it was reasonable to follow certain rules. Not everyone could be a chief physician. At the very least, they had to be a deputy chief physician for 5 years, and there was also a time limit to being a deputy chief physician. 2 years for a doctorate, 4 years for a master's degree, and this time limit was still based on the requirements of being an attending physician. That's why it was difficult for an average person to climb to this level without 10 or 20 years of work. But because this person in front of him was the grandson of the director, all the complicated procedures were exempted. However, the average person didn't understand these, especially in this small county. As long as one's medical skills were up to standard, it was normal to turn a blind eye sometimes. Moreover, this hospital's chairman and director were the same person. Outsiders couldn't make the decision, and Director Liu would definitely inherit this position in the future. When Director Liu heard Jing Yunzhao mention this matter, his expression started to stiffen. He thought for a bit and said, "What do you want to say now? Little girl, there are exceptions to everything. I've learned medicine from my grandfather since I was young. My standard is unquestionable." Really? Then, can Director Liu compete with me? Jing Yunzhao asked casually. Director Liu was stunned when he heard that. He sneered. Say that again? It seems that Director Liu's ears are not very good. Jing Yunzhao said proudly, "You've been studying medicine since you were young. Coincidentally, so have I. It's just a pity that I haven't gotten my medical license yet, but I think I'm still better than you." Everyone had seen how Jing Yunzhao had helped Gan Songbai earlier, so they knew she had some skills. However, she was still young and didn't even have a certificate. That didn't sound convincing at all. You said it yourself that you don't even have a certificate. What are you going to use to compete with me? What a joke. Little girl, I advise you to study hard. After a few years, when you return to Huaning County, you might have to beg me to give you a job. Director Liu said disdainfully. That means you don't dare. Even someone like me who hasn't finished my apprenticeship is afraid. It can be seen that you don't have much skill. It seems that people who seek you for treatment must be more careful in the future. Don't risk your life. Moreover, you're the dignified grandson of the director. I believe that even if you want someone's life, there will still be someone to take care of it for you. The patient's death will be in vain. Jing Yunzhao said sarcastically, trying to provoke him. Director Liu could choose not to respond, but his image had already plummeted because of the incident just now. As long as he stepped out of here, it was guaranteed that he wouldn't be able to gain the respect and trust of this hospital's patients for a long time. His sensitive identity would also directly affect this hospital. Chapter 193. Jing Yunzhao's provocation stunned the crowd. They couldn't believe that a little girl who looked underage would dare to be so arrogant. Even if Director Liu's medical skills were not as good as Gan Songbai's, he was still a professional. Director Liu's pupils constricted under his glasses. His face was serious and unhappy. He knew that this little girl was deliberately provoking him, but if he didn't respond, he would lose face. He gritted his teeth and said, How do you want to compete? Little girl, no patient here will be your guinea pig. Don't even think about it. Who said that the competition must be about treatment? Director Liu, since you're going to be in charge of this hospital in the future, why don't we compete in something simple and practical? For example, medicinal herbs, diagnosis, Chinese medicine prescriptions, anything is fine, Jing Yunjiao said directly. Ever since she started studying medicine, she had always kept a low profile. She always felt that she had only absorbed a few pieces of spirit jade, and her ability was not enough. No matter what kind of illness she faced, she had to be careful. But in fact, the more she came into contact with this industry, the more she understood her ability compared to others. Her ancestor had lived for hundreds of years. The spirit jade was the knowledge in his brain, and the ancestor's knowledge was all-encompassing. So even if she had only absorbed 8 pieces, it was still comparable to other doctors. Director Liu sneered. She was really just a little girl. He estimated that she only knew the basics. Okay, then we'll do as you say. Today, a powerful person came to deliver medicinal herbs. He knows all kinds of medicinal herbs very well. Let him be the referee. As for Dr. Qian and the others, you can continue to work. Dr. Gan can come and watch the competition. Director Liu snorted and said confidently. She was just a little girl. How many medicinal herbs could she know? This was not something that could be done by reciting the names of medicinal herbs. After Director Liu finished speaking, he had already called someone to inform them to get ready. Half an hour later, Old Man Gan's body was much better. There was basically no problem. He walked to the competition venue with Jing Yunjiao. Director Liu arranged the competition in a large conference room. There was a glass window on one side of the wall, so the people outside could clearly see the situation inside. Chief Surgeon Liu even invited a retired doctor over to take charge of the operation. It looked very formal. Don't you think Director Liu is too calculative? Isn't it just a competition with a little girl? He's actually making such a big fuss. If that girl loses, she'll definitely be ridiculed by him. Dr. Gan won't have any face either. Someone outside said angrily. Sure. The person next to him hurriedly reminded him and said, Director Liu's plan is not just to provoke the old man and the young girl, but also to wait for the little girl to be unable to answer the question so that Dr. Gan can replace her. He wants to use Dr. Gan as a stepping stone to correct his reputation. However, when this person said that, the others felt that it was ridiculous. Dr. Gan was very capable. How could Director Liu compare to Dr. Gan? If he really had such an idea, then his IQ would really be worrying. However, these outsiders did not know that they had completely guessed Director Liu's thoughts. Director Liu had been in the position of director for a long time, so he was very confident in his own strength. Dr. Gan had been in the hospital for several decades, so he was no different from other doctors. He naturally felt that Gan Songbai was just an empty name. At this time, in the big conference room, there were some older men and women. Jing Yunjiao's young appearance was particularly eye-catching. After waiting for a while, the powerful referee that Director Liu had invited finally walked in. Chapter 194. The crowd outside immediately opened up a path for the powerful figure. Jing Yunjiao turned her head and looked over. Her face flashed with surprise. The person who came wasn't a stranger. It was that strange old man, Uncle Su. Behind him was his disciple, Uncle Xing Yuan. When the two of them appeared, it was obvious that all the doctors in the room had very serious expressions, with a bit of respect. Director Liu quickly went up, his face carrying some flattery and politeness. Elder Su, you actually came in person? Thank you so much. Director Liu was shocked and happy at the same time. This Uncle Su was very mysterious. It was said that he wasn't a local and suddenly appeared in Huaning County. He was very low-key, but after he came, many big shots in the medical world specially came. It was said that his influence was very great. Moreover, his ability to make medicine was absolutely unmatched. Several hospitals in the county wanted to buy his processed herbs. His grandfather had told him long ago that he absolutely couldn't offend this Uncle Su. Otherwise, he would inevitably get into trouble. He had always remembered. So every time this old man and his disciple came, he would specially take time to accompany them. But unfortunately, this old man had a strange temper. He was very cold to him, and was very serious. And just now, he only wanted to invite this old man's disciple to come over. Who would have thought that Uncle Su would come together? It was really a surprise. At this time, Old Man Su didn't seem to hear Director Lu's greetings. He directly walked over and glanced at Jing Yunjiao, saying, "You can really make a fuss." Jing Yunjiao helplessly said, "Uncle Su, Uncle Xing Yuan, why are you here?" When these words were said, Director Lu's face suddenly stiffened. This stinky girl actually knew this surnamed Su? I heard that a blind girl provoked Director Lu. This old man thought of you, so I came to take a look. Sure enough, it's true. Uncle Su replied without the slightest trace of politeness. Director Lu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. When he called Su Xingyuan, he mentioned this Jing Yunjiao. He said that she was a blind and self-righteous girl. Looking at this old man Su's meaning, he heard it at that time? Then, with his current attitude, was he here to join in the fun or to seek justice for Jing Yunjiao? Jing Yunjiao had long been used to Uncle Su's tone. The old man had a bad temper, but he was really good to her. Gonsongbai treated her like a family member, and this old man Su was like a respected teacher. When she was absorbing the spirit jade, she would occasionally encounter some things that she didn't understand. Every time she opened her mouth to ask, she would definitely get an answer from old man Su. Of course, he would also scold her as an idiot. She had always admired this old man because he was like a walking encyclopedia. As long as it was related to medicinal herbs, he would know everything clearly. He had a comprehensive understanding of all the methods to concoct medicinal herbs. His ability was outstanding. Not only that, Jing Yunjiao also felt that he had done some research on medical skills. At the very least, his level wouldn't be worse than Gonsongbai's. It was just that he didn't focus on medical skills. At this moment, old man Su's expression was still solemn. He didn't look as amiable as the other old men, but he had the aura of someone who didn't understand the crowd. Isn't there a competition? Xingyuan, get someone to bring up the things I've prepared. Old man Su said coldly. At this moment, the room was silent. Not long after, all kinds of medicinal herbs were placed in front of him, but they were all wrapped in oil paper. Gonsongbai, who was sitting to the side and watching the competition, suddenly frowned. He had a very strange feeling. Yunjiao, this girl's serious appearance was somewhat similar to Grandmaster Su's. They had the same aura and the same demeanor, but they were both cold and strange. If this Grandmaster Su was a local, he would even suspect that this Jing Yunjiao was his grandson. Chapter 195. Gonsongbai also had some respect for this old man Su. He even inquired about this Master Su who was the same age as him. However, his ability was limited. He only knew that this person was called Su Jingji. He was famous for his eccentric temperament and lived in a remote alley in the county. This person did not lack money, but he chose to live in an inconvenient place. It was clear that he did not like crowds. This Su Jingji was a pharmaceutical master, or more accurately, a pharmaceutical madman. Besides his disciple, Su Xingyuan, there was no one else. Elder Su, do you want us to identify the herbs? Gonsongbai was sizing up Su Jingji when Director Lu rushed up and asked with a smile. Old man Su frowned. Identify the herbs by smell. Begin. Director Lu was stunned. What did he mean? Identifying by the smell of the fragrance? That was not necessary, Director Lu. It seems that you don't have much confidence. Since that is the case, I won't be polite. Jing Yunjiao did not think much of it. She took a pen and paper and approached the oiled paper bags to smell them one by one. Some of the herb smell was very obvious and strong. Generally, experienced doctors could smell it. However, at the same time, there were many herbs that did not have any smell. It was difficult to identify them. However, for Jing Yunjiao, this test did not make it difficult for her. Since young, her sense of smell was more sensitive. Since she had the space and absorbed the spirit jade, many subtle smells could not hide in front of her. Seeing that Jing Yunjiao's speed was extremely fast, Director Lu couldn't just be surprised anymore and hurriedly followed after her. Just this smell made him feel a little confused. Halfway through, he could only smell 3 herbs: agarwood, peppermint, and tangerine peel. As for the rest, he could roughly identify some of them, but there was still some that he did not have a clue about. Jing Yunjiao's speed was so fast that he even suspected that this girl was writing nonsense. 30 herbs, each one was only given 15 seconds. Therefore, after 10 minutes, the first round was over. Director Liu still had not recovered from his shock. He had a bad premonition. In his imagination, this was not the way to compare herbs. Not with the nose, but with the eyes. If he relied on his eyes, he could guarantee that he would be able to recognize all of these herbs. Little Liu 15. Su Jingji didn't even raise his head. He glanced at his answer scroll and said directly. His answer was a mess. It was obvious that he wasn't sure at all. However, he had some foundation after all. He guessed half of it correctly. Director Liu heaved a sigh of relief. Although the results were a little bad, it was better than he had expected. Jing Yunjiao, all correct. Not bad. While Director Liu was guessing Jing Yunjiao's results, Su Jingji nodded in satisfaction and said, "You've done well." Impossible. Director Liu hurriedly rushed forward and snatched Jing Yunjiao's answer. When he saw it, he was dumbfounded. The handwriting on the white paper was neat and tidy. 30 types of medicinal herbs were listed perfectly. Looking at the medicinal herbs, Director Liu thought for a moment and knew that Jing Yunjiao was right. But how did this Jing Yunjiao have this kind of ability? Are you done? If you're done, let's move on to the next round. Su Jingji did not care about Director Liu's thoughts. He glanced at him and said a sentence. After that, he directly asked Xing Yuan to remove the medicinal herbs. Then, he spread out dozens of small paper bags. Here are 10 types of medicinal herbs: Gastrodia elata, Chinese yam, Panax nodoginseng, Morinda officinalis, Chuan fritillary, black medicine, safflower, Eucamia ulmoides, deer antler, and ginseng. However, there are fakes in each of these herbs. You only need to pick out 10 authentic ones. Uncle Xing Yuan added after arranging the things. Chapter 196. The large table in the conference room was densely filled with all kinds of medicinal herbs. 10 kinds of medicinal herbs were already quite a lot, but there were several fake ones for each of them. Moreover, at a glance, the real ones were almost exactly the same as the fake ones. They had not yet recovered from Jing Yunjiao's quick performance in the last round, and were already stunned by the things in front of them. Even Chief Surgeon Liu felt his heart skip a beat, let alone the young nurses and the patient's family members who knew nothing about the situation outside. He could accept the choice of 2 and was somewhat confident, but wasn't this a bit too difficult? For example, this Gastrodia elata actually had 7 choices. Who could distinguish between them in such a short time? Is there a problem? Su Jingji was still indifferent, as if he could not see the shock of the people around him. To him, distinguishing between the real and fake herbs was a necessary basic lesson. If one could not even understand this, then this person should stay far away from herbs, so as to avoid using fake herbs to harm people in the future. Elder Su, can't you remove a few choices for each herb? Director Liu pursed his lips and asked with some dissatisfaction. His original intention was to embarrass Jing Yunjiao and Gonsong Bai, but Su Jingji had set such a difficult question. Wasn't he also at a disadvantage? Then what was the point of him agreeing to the competition? Remove a few choices? Elder Su snorted coldly, his eyes staring at him as if he wanted to kill someone. Then why don't you just let me help you pick out the real one? Can you compete? If not, then admit defeat and scram. Chief Surgeon Liu choked on his own saliva. He knew this old man's temper was not good, but he did not expect him to not give him any face and reprimand him in front of so many people. Jing Yunjiao, why aren't you starting? If you're wrong, then don't see me in the future. This old man doesn't want to know trash. Elder Su was also rude to Jing Yunjiao. However, although he said that, Gonsong Bai could clearly feel the pride in Su Jingji's eyes. It made him feel that this Su Jingji not only did not see Jing Yunjiao as trash, but also clearly knew her strength. That was why he spoke so unscrupulously. This was strange. Could it be that the mysterious master behind Jing Yunjiao was Su Jingji? If this was really the case, then it had to be said that the little girl's luck was extremely good. Although this Su Jing was strange, he was definitely a capable person with real ability. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao's expression didn't change. He went forward to observe them one by one. Gastrodia elata. The surface is yellowish-white or light yellowish-brown, with irregular vertical wrinkles, translucent, tough, not easy to break. The cross-section is flat and horny. Generally speaking, those merchants will use the root of chrysanthemum, purple jasmine root, trichosanthin, banana, taro root, potato, sweet potato, and so on to process imitation. It seemed difficult, but in fact, the taste and color were completely different. Jing Yunzhao successfully chose one of them. On the other side, Director Liu had already brought over some reagents. She could not help but feel amused. As a traditional Chinese physician, Chief Surgeon Liu's methods were similar to those of Western doctors. Besides, it wasn't difficult to distinguish Gastrodia elata, but he still needed to rely on things like iodine liquid. It could be seen that he only knew some things from books and didn't have much understanding of medicinal herbs. Not only did Jing Yunzhao look down on Chief Surgeon Liu's actions, but even some of the other doctors also shook their heads. Although that was also a method of identification, in the eyes of these traditional doctors, it was a bit nondescript. Jing Yunzhao's state of mind was calm as she continued to observe. Yam. The imitation was usually cast with plant starch, or processed with sweet potato, cassava, ginseng, and shallot. The taste was different. Safflower, mostly dyed with cornstalk, ginseng. The imitation was also very common. The ones on the table were Huashan ginseng, microphyte, platycodon, Angelica dihurica, wild cowpea, and mountain lettuce. The variety was simply wonderful. Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but admire this inferior imitation. After all, if she met someone like Director Liu, she was afraid that it would be easy to fool him. Chapter 197. Jing Yunzhao had always been calm and composed. Her serious look made many people feel that this seemingly young girl might really be an expert. Most of the doctors in the room could distinguish the things on the table, but the time required was different. There weren't many people who were as fast and accurate as Jing Yunzhao. They couldn't help but admit that even if they weren't clear about Jing Yunzhao's medical skills, they could still confirm that she had an incomparable eyesight and sense of smell. Just based on her skills, even if she couldn't become a doctor, she could still be an appraiser of medicinal ingredients. Moreover, she knew someone like Elder Su. If she could get some pointers from Elder Su and become a master concoction master, her future would be limitless. Although medical skills were important, even the cleverest housewife could not cook without rice. Medicinal herbs were the foundation, and they all understood this principle. When Jing Yunzhao finished the competition, Director Liu was only halfway through. Other than the medicinal herbs on the table, there were also many tools he used. The smell made the doctors frown. If it weren't for the fact that Director Liu was President Liu's grandson, they would have severely criticized this young man. There's no need to compete, Elder Su suddenly said. Jing Yunzhao got everything right again? Elder Su, I'm not done yet. Director Liu was a little dissatisfied. Although he was a little slow, he used the most appropriate test method and was the most accurate. When he was studying in Beijing, the books taught him the same way. He could not be judged to have lost just because he was slow, right? Moreover, Jing Yunzhao got everything right with her eyesight. Could it mean that she would get all the medicinal herbs she encountered in the future? Such a careless attitude was actually very dangerous. There's no need to continue. What's the difference between a doctor who can't even differentiate between medicinal herbs and trash? Don't hang around in front of me in the future and dirty my eyes. Elder Su was very straightforward and did not give Director Liu any face. After saying that, he looked at Jing Yunzhao. Stupid girl, can anyone compete with you? You're looking down on yourself too much. Also, didn't I tell you before? If you encounter any trouble, you can talk to Li Xiaoyun. Naturally, someone will help you deal with it. You just have to be responsible for learning good things. What's there to worry about? Oh right, this old man also got you a certificate. In the future, if anyone says that you're not qualified to treat illnesses, you can poke their eyes out for me to see. I've lived for dozens of years and have processed all kinds of eyeballs, but I haven't studied human eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, Uncle Xingyuan behind him handed over a document. Jing Yunzhao opened it and looked at it. His heart was filled with gratitude. To get a doctor's license, one had to go through the formal examination or the apprenticeship test. But even the apprenticeship test was not so simple. But now, Elder Sue had solved it for her at once. Elder Sue, that's not right. She's just a little girl. She's not even an adult yet. Director Liu said anxiously. Was this in line with the rules? As far as I know, you don't follow the rules either. But at the very least, this brat is capable enough. Su Lao rolled his eyes at him and did not hide his disgust. In this world, there were medical families on the surface, but there were also low-key miracle doctors that others could not afford to offend. As long as the master who brought them in nodded, they could finish their apprenticeship at any time. As for the rules these days, they were all for outsiders to see. That's enough. I really don't know what a trash like you is struggling for. In the future, don't bother me with this kind of small matter. Old Man Su said to Xing Yuan, who was beside him, and lifted his foot to walk outside. The rest of the people were in a complete mess. When Director Liu heard those words, he was so angry that his legs turned to jelly. Chapter 198. Director Liu's ability was clearly seen by the people outside. Gong Song breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that after today, Director Liu could forget about raising his head in the hospital. Moreover, he would have to bear the pressure from the people outside. Even if he was the president's grandson, he might not be able to sit firmly in the director's position. Girl, let's go. Dr. Gon opened his mouth. As soon as he opened his mouth, Jing Yunjiao and Xiang Jin immediately stepped forward to help him out of the hospital. Director Liu watched as the old man he hated finally left his sight, but he couldn't feel happy. Everyone's gaze was too glaring. Chief Surgeon Liu used to be quite capable, but that was a few years ago. After a long time, he had forgotten most of the things he knew. Most of the patients he took in were those who had been prescribed medicine by others. All he needed to do was to sign the prescription or take a look at it. How could he have any real skills? What Chief Surgeon Liu did not know was that the scene of the quarrel and competition in the hospital had been secretly recorded by someone. It had now been spread on the Huaning County Forum, and after a few hours, it had become a hot topic for everyone to know. Director Liu was old and neglected the hospital's matters. When he heard the news, it was already too late. Once he heard that his grandson not only made Gong Song sick, but also fired him, he almost had a heart attack. He took Gong Song as a close friend. If it wasn't because Gong Song didn't like to socialize and only wanted to treat patients peacefully and steadily, he would definitely have cooperated with Gong Song to establish the hospital decades ago. At that time, he also received a lot of help from Gong Song. Now, he was fired just like that. How could he not know Gong Song's temperament? Being pointed at and scolded for having no medical ethics at that time, he probably had the heart to die. This grudge was really big. If it was just this matter, Director Liu wouldn't be unable to accept it. But he didn't expect that idiot to compete with a child. The competition was fine, but the problem was that he actually lost in the end. He was even pointed at by Su Jingji and scolded as trash. Ever since the video spread, Director Liu's phone never stopped ringing. Every call was from those people who couldn't afford to offend him, and those people were all after Su Jingji's name. Director Liu wanted to cry but had no tears. Don't look at how Su Jingji was only a pharmacist. His connections were rampant to the point that it made people's hair stand up. Even medical families had to give him face. How could he, the director of a small hospital, afford to offend him? That night, Dean Liu directly removed his own grandson from his position. He even declared that his grandson would never inherit the hospital in the future. The next morning, someone directly stripped Director Liu of his qualifications to practice medicine. Director Liu was still a little confused. He did not understand how so many things had happened in one night. While Director Liu was down on his luck, Qin Jishui's name spread even further. The public was more concerned about this scum man. In that video, Qin Jishui's hypocritical appearance was still fresh in their minds. Qin Jishui's house and car were both seized, so he could only take the old lady back to their old home in Huaning County. Along the way, they were mysteriously spat on a few times by someone. At first, they thought it was just a coincidence, but when they got back, they discovered that the front door of the house under their old mother's name was painted full with the word scum. Not long after, his phone number was also found out. They harassed him day and night, and he was annoyed beyond endurance. Unfortunately, the old lady's illness had yet to recover, but she had already offended all the doctors in Huaning County. Her problem was getting more and more serious. It was no longer a state where she could be cured with just a few doses of medicine. Qin Jishui had no money on him and no longer had the ability to hire the neighbors to help take care of her. However, he had always felt that he was a cut above others. Making him take care of the old lady's urine every day was worse than killing him. As for Xiang Jin, she finally got a divorce as she wished. Qin Jishui was naturally unwilling, but everything was enforced. He was not allowed to resist at all. Chapter 199. Inside the house filled with junk, there wasn't even a job. Qin Jishui laid on the bed in despair. He could even hear the painful howls coming from the other room. Qin Jishui didn't know how his life ended up like this. Everything seemed to have returned to a decade ago. At that time, he was so poor that he didn't even have any living expenses left. The old lady would always praise him for being smart and sensible outside, boasting to her relatives and friends that not only did he get into a university, he also had a generous scholarship. She even said that he could rely on his own ability to earn all his expenses outside, making him suffer unspeakably. His roommates all wore branded clothes. No matter how poor they were, they wouldn't live like him. Even when he was resting, he had to be tutored by those students. Moreover, those children from wealthy families were very difficult to manage. As a tutor, he didn't do a good job at it. It was also at this time that a boy from his dorm took a liking to Xiang Jin. He overheard a few words and found out that Xiang Jin's father was the CEO of a company. Not only was she good-looking, she also had a good temper and rejected many people's pursuit. The moment he saw Xiang Jin, he felt somewhat unreconciled. They were all humans, but there was always a distinction between high and low. What he couldn't achieve in his lifetime, Xiang Jin had it since birth. She was rich, so she bemoaned the state of the universe and pitied the fate of mankind. Her gaze towards him was filled with sympathy. So, he used all methods to get close to her. Of course, Xiang Jin was indeed a good woman. It was hard for him not to be moved, but he knew what he wanted even more. Seeing Xiang Jin turn from a proud rich family's young miss into a haggard old woman, he felt that his uneasy feelings were finally pacified. There were many women outside, but he had never thought of divorcing Xiang Jin. It was not because he loved Xiang Jin very much, but because Xiang Jin was different. Every time he saw her, he knew that he was successful, and those people outside would never understand. Qin Jishui's mind was in a mess. The old lady was itching unbearably and was about to go crazy. She started scolding, "You good-for-nothing trash. You can't even control a woman. You caused me to have to suffer with you at this age. Tell me, what's the point of raising you? What kind of sin have I committed to give birth to such an unfilial son? I told you to call Dr. Gon, but you didn't listen. You want me to die, ah?" The demonic sound entered his ears, causing Qin Jishui's veins to bulge. He gnashed his teeth in anger. Qin Jishui couldn't help but think of Xiang Jin. His entire body felt extremely uncomfortable. Although Xiang Jin had become a haggard old woman during the first 2 years of her marriage to him, even though she was very busy outside, she was still gentle and soft when she came home. How harmonious were the two of them at that time. Also, when Xiang Jin had a miscarriage, she did not look so desperate. If he could go back to that time, he would definitely treat Xiang Jin better after he took over the company. Also, she was related to the Tang family. If he had known earlier, he didn't know much about it. Qin Jishui's miserable life continued day by day. Old Madam continued to scold him every day like before, becoming more and more unpleasant to the ears. However, this time, the target of her scolding was her own son. Qin Jishui thoroughly felt the pain Xiang Jin had gone through before. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. He had no job and no savings. In the end, Qin Jishui simply let the old lady sell the little shelter they had and rented a house nearby. It was just that the old lady's voice was too loud. The neighbors complained all day long. Not long after, they were both chased out. Qin Jishui invested all the money he earned from selling the house into his business in an attempt to rise up again. However, in the end, he still lost everything and ended up wandering the streets. Old Madam wasn't good at walking, so Qin Jishui simply brought her to the streets to beg for money every day. He also couldn't bring himself to look for a job elsewhere, so he had to rely on that meager income to survive. It was extremely miserable. Of course, these were all stories for later. Chapter 200. Some people's reputations were ruined, but there were also people whose reputations skyrocketed. Because Jing Yunjiao was still underage, in the video that was leaked before, that cold face was blurred out. Netizens didn't know Jing Yunjiao's identity, but that didn't stop their curiosity. These days, there were many good-looking girls, but there were very few who had such an imposing manner. Even through the screen, they could feel the cold air that the girl was emitting. Her voice was powerful, and every word was full of deterrence. It was even more exciting than a TV drama. When Jing Yunjiao appeared, she kicked director Liu and sent him flying. This became a topic that netizens took delight in talking about. Ever since the video was spread, the relatives and friends of the Gan family went crazy. They didn't know when the Gan family had a granddaughter. More importantly, this granddaughter actually had such a powerful medical talent. It shocked those old doctors. Gan Songbai was originally sullen for 2 days because he had to leave the hospital, but when others came to congratulate him on having a successor, the old man's resentment disappeared. Jinshin, you have to learn well from Yunjiao. If you really can't, it's fine to recognize a master. Our family also pays attention to that. As long as you can learn skills, seniority and whatnot isn't a problem. Grandpa Gan said with a smile as soon as he saw his grandson. Gan Jinshin specially went home to comfort his own biological grandfather, who knew that as soon as he entered the door, the old man would start to swindle him. His face immediately turned bitter. Jing Yunjiao wasn't even older than him. If he recognized her as a master, would he still have the face to see others in the future? On the other hand, Suchu nodded happily with a look of schadenfreude. Grandpa, I'm your biological grandson. Gan Jinshin blushed with shame. So what if you're my biological grandson? Yunjiao is more sensible than you. Grandpa Gan snorted. The thing he regretted the most now was that Jing Yunjiao wasn't a child of the Gan family. She was good-looking and talented. Where could they find such a seedling? Although he was old, he was not muddle-headed. Yunjiao treated him like her own grandfather. If she had not been there that day at the hospital, even if he had not been angered to death by Director Liu, his health would have been greatly reduced. Most importantly, his reputation would have been completely ruined. Jing Yunjiao sat at the side. His calm and steady appearance made him look like a jade carving. Just looking at him made one feel better. By the way, Yunjiao, what did you give me? I could smell the fragrance from afar. After a while, Grandpa Gan couldn't help but point at the gift bag that Jing Yunjiao brought over. Jing Yunjiao was waiting for these words. She smiled and opened the bag. It was the wine she brewed in the space. This wine was brewed using the recipe in the spirit jade. The alcohol content was not very high. It was mainly mellow and fragrant. She had tried it carefully. If it was brewed with the grains outside, it would taste better than those on the market. However, it was not as good as the grains in the space. This wine was given to Grandpa Gan, so it was naturally made with the best stuff. The wine bottle was exquisite and ancient. It looked like a thin gourd. There were not many embellishments on the bottle, but the bottom of the bottle was engraved with the words, Yuling. It was the name of the wine company that she and Pak Yuan had set up. Grandpa, try this wine. It was brewed by me. Jing Yunjiao opened the wine cork. Grandpa Gan's eyes instantly lit up. He also loved wine, but most of the time, he only drank medicinal wine. Every time, he wouldn't drink excessively, but he still had some understanding of wine. The wine that Jing Yunjiao brought over had a strong aroma. Just smelling it made him salivate. Chapter 201. Usually, Jing Yunjiao would bring some fresh fruits when she came to the Gan residence. Gan Jinshin and Suchu felt that it was strange that she was acting so abnormally today. When they saw that she was taking out wine, they were even more confused. The old man didn't love wine. In the past, He had piled up the wine that others gave him everywhere. In the end, he had no choice but to give it to others. In short, the old man didn't even look at it. His reaction today wasn't right. Was he giving face to Jing Yunjiao? Su Chu and Gan Jinshin had the same thought. However, after the old man took the wine and took a small sip, he revealed a very surprised expression in the next second. He clapped his hands and said, "Good wine. There are no impurities in this wine. It's much better than the ones I drank in the past. Yunjiao, accompany this old man for a meal today. I'll try it again." "Oh right, did you brew this yourself?" The old man suddenly thought of something. He was a little shocked. Why did this little girl always give him the feeling that she was omnipotent? Brewing wine wasn't strange. Su Chu had tried making wine before, but the taste was really bad. However, Jing Yunjiao's wine was different. It was mellow and fragrant, with a clear and pure color. The aftertaste lasted for a long time. After drinking 2 mouthfuls, he felt as if his fatigue was dispelled. It made his mood better. The same went for the fruits that Jing Yunjiao sent. He heard that they were all planted by her mysterious master. The taste was completely different from the ones on the market. Not only did they look good, but they also tasted good. Every time Jing Yunjiao sent them a large amount, they couldn't finish it. However, ever since the family had those fresh fruits, they didn't even have a cold or fever. Of course, it might not be related to the things that Jing Yunjiao sent over. However, he still felt that she must be extraordinary. "Grandfather, you're the first person to taste it. However, in addition to this wine, I also brewed medicinal wine and fruit wine. I'll bring them over for you to see next time," Jing Yunjiao said. This wine had its own name. When the factory mass-produced it, the name would be engraved on the bottle. "Yunjiao girl, what are you thinking about every day in that little head of yours? You can even brew wine. Did your master teach you this?" The old man sighed, his heart filled with emotion. Jing Yunjiao nodded. At this moment, when the old man tasted the wine again, the feeling in his heart was different. There was also a faint sense of pride. If this wine was sold, it would definitely be able to stand firmly in the market. If that day really came, wouldn't he, the first person to eat crabs, be envied to death? However, this market would probably have to wait for another 2 years. When Jing Yunjiao reached adulthood, he might be able to give it a try. However, the old man would never have thought that not long after, this wine would become a trend. Jing Yunjiao wasn't in a hurry to say it. After all, the matter wasn't settled yet. It was inevitable that the old man would be worried. Once everything was settled, the old man would only need to enjoy the surprise. Jing Yunjiao's wine caused the old man to become an alcoholic for the first time. However, this matter also caused a bit of a joke. Old man Gon had a son and a daughter, but they both had independent jobs. Recently, the old man's matter had caused a lot of commotion. It was impossible for them not to know. When the two of them heard the news, they immediately rushed home. Who knew that when they entered the house, they would find that the old man, who usually didn't like wine, couldn't help but drink a cup. The two of them were frightened. He had already reached the point of drinking to drown his sorrows. How could he be in a good mood? As a result, the two of them hurriedly discussed sending the old man out on a trip to relieve his boredom. They even secretly changed the old man's wine into water. The old man couldn't find the treasure that Jing Yunjiao sent over. He was so anxious that his eyes turned red. His anger wasn't light at all. Only after he flew into a rage did his children confess. When the old man heard this, he wanted to scold someone. Chapter 202. Grandpa Gon's son and daughter had never seen their father like this before. They were anxious and panicked, and felt that this incident had greatly affected their father. "Dad, you should drink less of this wine. Why don't we accompany you on a trip? It's healthy and good for your mood." "That's right, Dad. If you really want to drink it, then try the medicinal wine. Also, I just saw it. I don't know which factory produced this wine. We don't even know if it's up to standard." "Oh right, did you buy it, or did someone give it to you? I'm going to settle the score with them." Grandpa Gon was so angry that his face turned green. Gon Jinshin was urgently called back. When he saw his father and aunt in this state, he felt a sense of schadenfreude. "Dad, Auntie, this wine was brewed by my classmate." Before Gon Jinshin could finish speaking, He heard his father suddenly roar, "What? What is your classmate thinking? How can you casually drink the wine that you brewed yourself? You too. Grandpa Gon is confused and you're confused too, aren't you? What's your classmate's name? Bring me to her and ask her clearly. How can she be so stupid?" Bang! Grandpa Gon casually picked up a book from the table and threw it at his son's head. Gon Jinshan's mouth twitched, and he secretly laughed. Jing Yunjiao was his grandfather's precious god-granddaughter. She was more important than him, his biological grandson. Calling her stupid, his father brought this upon himself. Bastard! I'm so angry. Who are you calling stupid? I think you're the one who is stupid. This wine was brewed by Yun Zhao. So what? It's delicious. There were only 2 bottles, and you 2 idiots actually poured it all away. Grandpa Gon was so angry that his beard was stiff. When he thought about the wine, he felt his heart ache. This wine was getting better the more he drank it. After drinking it, his chest didn't feel stuffy anymore. He even slept soundly. Now it was all gone. His son and daughter were dumbfounded. Of course, Jing Yunjiao and the others knew about it. They also liked this little girl very much. No wonder their father scolded them for being stupid. So it's a gift from Yunjiao. No wonder it smells so good. Dad, I didn't know. How about this? I'll ask Yunjiao for a few more bottles. Uncle Gon said immediately. He smelled the wine when he poured it out, but he didn't taste it because he was worried about the old man. He might be worried about the things given by others, but Jing Yunjiao knew her limits. Moreover, Old Master's matter was all thanks to her. The old man snorted. Go. Come back when there's wine. Otherwise, don't come back. After all, Jing Yunjiao was still a child. He probably didn't have much time to brew wine. He might not even have any stock on hand. Uncle Gon immediately responded, and the 2 elders dragged Gon Jinshan out of the door. Only then did they learn the truth about the old man's fondness for wine from Gon Jinshan. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. They wanted to coax the old man, but who knew that the flattery would backfire? The father and son of the Gon family went to their residence together. When Jing Yunjiao heard the purpose of their visit, she couldn't help but laugh. She even took out an extra bottle of wine. Uncle Gon, you can try it too. If you think it's good, feel free to ask me in the future. Although Gon Jinshan's father was only a doctor, Gon Jinshan's mother was a businesswoman. She usually had to give gifts or entertain VIPs. The taste of her wine was absolutely impeccable. Now, she was only worried about its popularity. In fact, besides Old Master Gon, Jing Yunjiao also gave a few bottles to Old Man Su. After all, this matter was thanks to his help. But now, Jing Yunjiao was conflicted. She was going to send this wine to Yu Tianxian for Du Lin to taste, but what about Li Xiaoyun? Chapter 203. At this time, Uncle Gon felt much more relaxed after receiving the wine. After calming down, he felt that the old man's love for this wine was not without reason. After leaving Jing Yunjiao's place, Uncle Gon carefully sneaked a sip of the wine as soon as he got into the car. The moment it entered his stomach, it immediately triggered the worms in his stomach. He rolled his eyes and decided to take a few more bottles. When he returned to the old man's place, he only took out 2 bottles. As for Jing Yunjiao, she personally went to Yu Tianxian and brought 20 bottles with her. It would take about 3 months for the factory to brew the first batch of wine. Before that, all the company's publicity and sales would be provided by her space. After all, time was slow in the space, so it would not take too much time. However, there was also a disadvantage, which was that there was a limit to the quantity. Therefore, in these 3 months, her and Pak Yuan's goal was to increase Yuling wine's popularity. In Yu Tianxian, there was an endless stream of customers, and business was booming. Jing Yunjiao's daily delivery of ingredients had more than doubled compared to before. Young Master Li said that you were heartless, and he was right. Du Lin took a sip of wine with great interest, but he did not forget what young Master Li had told him. What do you mean? Jing Yunjiao did not understand at all. Looking at her confused eyes, Du Lin smacked his lips and secretly admired young Master Li. Young Master Li has returned to the capital. According to the previous schedule, he will only be back next year, Du Lin explained. Jing Yunjiao's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. No wonder she had not received any text or phone calls from Li Xiaoyun for so long. Li Xiaoyun had been discharged before her exam, but she was really busy at that time and had rejected his 2 invitations to treat her. Although she occasionally thought of him recently, she felt that a young master like him would have a lot of things to do, so she did not take the initiative to contact him. When did he leave? I was thinking of giving him a few bottles of wine, but since he's not here, forget it. Jing Yunjiao inexplicably let out a sigh of relief. Li Xiaoyun was a very suitable person to make friends with, and the two of them could get along well. However, she did not like the scrutinizing look in his eyes. This person was too smart. In addition, he had the advantage in terms of age. He could always guess her thoughts, so when they got along, her emotions would often be exposed in front of him. Seeing Jing Yunjiao's attitude, Du Lin couldn't help but laugh. You went back during the exam. Before young Master Li left, he said that if I didn't take the initiative to mention it, you wouldn't think of him. I didn't believe him at first, but now it seems that he was right. Little Yunjiao, don't be fooled by young Master Li's arrogance. I can guarantee you that the reason why he stayed in Huaning County for so long this year is all because of you. The next time he comes back, it's better if you treat him more gently. He's already at the age where he can get married. If he thinks that all the girls in the world are as cold as you, he might end up alone in the future. Du Lin laughed again. Half of it was a joke. Jing Yunjiao only treated it as a joke. But he had to admit that it was a pity that there was no overbearing and smart person like Li Xiaoyun by his side. A few days later, Yuling Wine's first 7-star wine, which was brewed with 7 types of grains, began to show signs of improvement. Yu Tianxian's reputation was quite good. During this period of time, Du Lin would pick out a table of customers for them to try. These customers were mostly influential people. They would naturally ask about the wine once they tasted it. When they heard that it was a new product launched by a new company, they were somewhat disappointed, but also somewhat expectant. In addition, Gan Jinshan's mother specially bought a batch from Jing Yunjiao. The response was even better. The business circle was very complicated, but it wasn't big. Once something new appeared, it would easily attract their attention. Naturally, they would begin to inquire about it. Chapter 204. Of course, there were quite a few wine companies that wanted to get their hands on her recipe. Gan Jinshan's mother treated her well and asked for her opinion. However, when she found out that the wine had been handed over to someone else to make, she couldn't help but be surprised. The hot holiday passed quickly. At the end of August, Yuling Wines officially launched the 7-star wine for sale. However, due to the limited quantity, it was sold out immediately. Pak Yuan took the opportunity to make a name for himself and received a lot of orders. Xiang Jin also became Jing Yunjiao's right-hand woman. Although she suffered many setbacks in her relationship, she was decisive and had a lot of ideas when it came to work. Jing Yunjiao wasn't worried that these 2 people would take charge of the company's affairs. Seeing that school was about to start in 3 days, Jing Yunjiao went out with Xiao Haiqing to shop and prepare the things they needed for school. However, after the 2 of them walked around, Jing Yunjiao inexplicably felt a gaze following her closely. Someone was definitely following them. However, when she turned her head, there were many passers-by, so it was difficult to distinguish. What's wrong? Xiao Haiqing asked, puzzled. Nothing, Haiqing. I'm a little tired. Let's go sit in that shop? Jing Yunjiao pointed at a snack bar by the road. Xiao Haiqing felt that there was something wrong with Jing Yunjiao. In the past, whenever she dragged Jing Yunjiao out shopping, she wouldn't say the word tired even if she carried things for a whole day. She wouldn't even sweat. However, they had only been out for a while now. However, Xiao Haiqing's eyesight was very good. When she saw Jing Yunjiao's state, her first thought was that she had her own reasons. She nodded without hesitation. It wasn't dinner time yet, so there weren't many people in the shop. Jing Yunjiao symbolically ordered some food and sat down quietly. Her gaze was fixed on the entrance, watching the people walking back and forth in front of it. After staring for a while, Jing Yunjiao found a strange target. The other party looked like a woman in her 40s or 50s. She was dressed in ordinary clothes, her hair was messy, and her skin was dark. She looked like she worked hard all year round. Her eyes were a little flustered, and she glanced at her from time to time. Her face was full of hesitation, and her expression was very complicated. A few minutes later, another rough-looking man walked over. At first glance, the man looked like a laborer, and his clothes were not exquisite. The two of them dawdled for a while and began to walk towards Jing Yunjiao. You. Xiao Haiqing looked at the two people who suddenly appeared in front of her. She was surprised. Eldest girl. Yes, she's the eldest girl. Father, take a look. Her eyebrows and eyes are the same as mine when I was young. The woman said. Jing Yunjiao was stunned. Xiao Haiqing's mouth twitched. How was it exactly the same? Jing Yunjiao's red phoenix eyes were sharp and spirited, while this woman's eyes were downwards with a bitter expression. Furthermore, she had a round nose. Jing Yunjiao, on the other hand, was different. Her nose was sharp and perky, small and exquisite. The difference in style was 2 centuries. You've been following me all the way. What's the matter? Jing Yunjiao didn't get angry and asked calmly, since he didn't know the reason. When the woman heard this, tears flowed down her face. She stepped forward to grab Jing Yunjiao's hand. However, Jing Yunjiao had been practicing martial arts in the space for 2 months during the summer vacation. She had never liked strangers touching her, so she naturally avoided it. Aya, you're my eldest girl. There's no mistake. Seeing Jing Yunjiao's cold attitude, the woman wailed. Jing Yunjiao frowned. Xiao Haiqing couldn't close her mouth, and her eyelids kept twitching. Chapter 205. Fortunately, there weren't many customers in the store, so the woman's actions didn't attract too much attention. Jing Yunjiao's heart was also flustered. She raised her head to take a closer look. This couple's attitude was earnest. The woman's tears flowed down in strings. Both her eyes were red, but she seemed to be sincere. She kept calling her eldest lass, so it was hard for her not to overthink the meaning behind those words. The other party cried for a while, but she wasn't afraid. She directly sat down on the seat next to her and stared at Jing Yunjiao as if she was afraid that she would escape. She slowly opened her mouth and said, Eldest lass, I've wronged you all these years. I thought you already. Isn't the child fine? Don't speak nonsense. The man next to her immediately stopped her. What do you two mean? Can you explain it clearly? Jing Yunjiao said with a frown. After she found out about her identity in her previous life, she also wanted to find her biological parents, but she was already in prison at that time. She didn't have any requirements for her biological parents. This was Huaning County, which was only a small place. It was basically impossible for her parents to be rich and noble. Moreover, if their family was really well off, then there was no reason for them to abandon her. So when she saw the two people in front of her, Jing Yunjiao was already half believing and half doubting. Lass, you have a small gourd jade pendant on you, right? The two people looked at each other and asked. Jing Yunjiao's gaze was complicated as she nodded. Then there's no mistake. You're our child. Your surname is Jing, and it's engraved on the jade tablet. When I gave birth to you, your grandmother saw that you were a girl, so she secretly threw you away behind your father and me. I searched the entire village, but couldn't find you. Eldest lass, don't blame me. I've also missed you all these years. The woman cried. Jing Yunjiao pursed her lips and her expression was calm. Xiao Haiqing was already so shocked that she couldn't speak. Her mouth was opened so wide that an egg could be stuffed in. After a while, she carefully opened her mouth and said, Yunjiao. These were Jing Yunjiao's biological parents? However, for some reason, she felt that it was very strange, or rather, she was somewhat unwilling to believe it. Of course, it wasn't that she despised the two of them for looking poor, but she felt that they weren't quite the same as Jing Yunjiao. Whether it was their eyebrows or silhouettes, there wasn't the slightest bit of similarity. The only convincing thing was the jade token. Yunjiao, the Chao clan knows that you have a jade token. Xiao Haiqing suddenly remembered and reminded him. As soon as Xiao Haiqing said this, the woman next to her immediately said, Are you suspecting that we are imposters? Little classmate, you think too badly of us. Duh. It's fine if you don't want to believe it. Isn't there a paternity test now? Let's just do it. You're definitely my child. How can I be wrong? Since he had already said so much, Xiao Haiqing really couldn't say anything more. However, it would be best if they could do an appraisal. Jing Yunjiao also nodded. Her heart was already in a mess. Although she occasionally thought about the matter of her biological parents, she didn't have any expectations. She didn't even think that she would meet them. At this moment, she couldn't even maintain her composure. "Child, there's no mistake." The woman opened her mouth again but was stopped by the man. She only heard the man say, "The child just saw us and can't accept it. How about this, child? I'll leave you my phone number. You tell me where you live and how to contact you. You can tell your adoptive parents and we'll do the appraisal tomorrow, okay?" Chapter 206. The couple's attitude was sincere, and it seemed like their relationship was pretty much confirmed. Jing Yunjiao nodded, and the other party introduced them. The man was called Jing Taijun, and the woman was called Wang Xian Fong. As for the other details, because their relationship was still uncertain, they didn't say much. The two stopped and talked for more than half an hour before leaving. Xiao Haiqing sighed. She felt that something was off. "Yunjiao, do you think they're really your biological parents?" Xiao Haiqing asked. The food in front of her was already cold, and she didn't have any appetite. She used her chopsticks to stir the food. "We'll know after the results are out." Jing Yunjiao was also confused. After all, everything happened too suddenly. She met her biological parents while shopping, and they even recognized her at a glance. It was really hard for her to grasp. However, she had been thrown away when she was still an infant. At that time, her eyebrows and eyes had not yet grown. Moreover, babies change their appearance every day. Even if the woman remembered her appearance at that time, after more than 10 years, the difference was like heaven and earth. This woman did not have discerning eyes, so how could she be sure? Moreover, because this jade tablet was related to space, she specially bought a sturdy chain and strung it up. Normally, she wouldn't take it out and show it to others. Although it was summer, she was wearing a light blue shirt with the buttons neatly fastened. If she didn't do some vigorous exercise, the jade gourd inside would definitely not be revealed. It was impossible for the woman to rely on this jade gourd to recognize her. Moreover, although this jade gourd looked dull like a fake product, how could something left behind by the ancestor be inferior? If this jade tablet was bought by Jing Taijun from an antique stall, then how could the ancestor inside the jade be explained? Could it be that Jing Taijun coincidentally bought something left behind by the Jing family? And if this jade gourd wasn't bought by Jing Taijun but was instead a family heirloom, then it would be even harder to explain. That woman kept saying that she was abandoned by the Jing family's old madam. Since the old madam favored males over females, she would never leave the things left behind by the Jing family's old ancestor to her granddaughter who might not even survive. Jing Yunjiao did not voice his suspicions. After all, the space inside the jade tablet and the ancestor were secrets that could not be revealed to others. Moreover, the results of the DNA test were still unknown. Everything was still too early. Once the results were out, if she really was the daughter of the Jing family, he would naturally think of a way to find out more. After such a commotion, the two of them no longer had the mood to continue shopping. After Jing Yunjiao returned, he asked Pak Yuan to inquire about it. The next morning, they also received the news. This Jing Taijun and Wang Xinfang came from a village called Water Village near Huaning County. Wang Xinfang's parents-in-law had already passed away. Jing Taijun was an ordinary worker while Wang Xinfang was a housewife responsible for farming and taking care of the children. Jing Taijun had 4 children. According to Pak Yuan, this couple gave birth late. The eldest was a girl who was lost a few years ago. The neighbors did not remember the exact time, but she should be around the same age as Jing Yunjiao. The eldest girl had 2 more daughters, and the youngest was a son. Currently, the Jing family of 5 was completely dependent on Jing Taijun's meager income. Their days were very difficult. Jing Yunjiao did not have a good impression of this couple who could very well be her parents. Perhaps it was because of the suspicions in his heart, but he always felt that this matter was too inexplicable. Chapter 207. No matter what, Jing Yunjiao couldn't turn a blind eye to her parents. After all, she also wanted to know if she was a wild girl that popped out from a crack in a rock. That morning, Jing Taijun and Wang Xinfang indeed appeared at the entrance of the district. The two were still wearing yesterday's clothes, while Jing Yunjiao was clean and tidy. The material of her clothes looked very good, creating a sharp contrast. Eldest daughter, aren't your adoptive parents coming with you? Wang Xinfang asked. Huaning County was only a small county and didn't have the technology to do a paternity test, so they had to make a trip to Ning City today. School would start the day after tomorrow, so there was still enough time. However, the results would probably take 10 days to half a month. I've cut ties with them. I'm alone now. Jing Yunjiao answered. Her face was delicate and pretty, and her temperament was cold and elegant. When she spoke, there was a bit of dignity, which made the couple stunned. However, very quickly, Wang Xinfang opened her mouth. How can this be good? We raised you up. If you cut ties with your biological parents just because you found them, then how will your reputation be good in the future? It's not because of you. Right now, we're not sure if we're related by blood, so you don't need to worry about this for now. Thank you. Jing Yunjiao's voice was powerful and resonant, polite and distant. Not to mention that they didn't know if they were biological parents. Even if they were biological parents, they couldn't be intimate for a while. Moreover, when she thought about the news Pak Yuan told her this morning, she felt somewhat uncomfortable in her heart. The couple said that the Jing family's elders favored boys over girls, but in reality, Wang Xinfang's mother-in-law passed away about 15 years ago. In other words, even if her grandmother had abandoned her, the couple had given birth to another child without anyone pressuring them. Her other two daughters were 14 and 12 years old, while her youngest son was 10 years old. They would give birth to another child every 2 years until they gave birth to their son. No matter how one looked at it, it didn't seem like they were forced by their elders. Jing Yunjiao's attitude at this time made the couple's faces stiffen. Forget it. Forget it. The child hasn't been by our side for so many years, so it's normal for her to have some differences with us. Let's go to the city first. Jing Taijun faintly sighed. The two of them had a distressed look on their faces, as if they had suffered a great sin. Jing Yunjiao didn't mind, and got on the bus to Ning City with the two of them. In the car, Jing Yunjiao's exquisite appearance inevitably attracted people's attention. Wang Xinfang, who was beside her, saw that people were staring at Jing Yunjiao, so she put on a smile and said, "This is my eldest daughter." Originally, there were only a few glances from the others, but after Wang Xinfang's words, the car became lively in no time. "Big sister, you really know how to raise your daughter. This girl is so pretty. I think she can be a star." The auntie sitting next to her praised. Jing Yunjiao frowned slightly as he sat by the window. He was not used to it. The space in the car was claustrophobic, so it was easy to feel annoyed and stuffy. Moreover, she had never liked being pointed at. Even if the other party had good intentions, the gazes that looked like they were looking at a gorilla made her feel uncomfortable. This girl was beautiful when she was young, but big sister, you don't know. My family's girl was lost for many years. I only found her yesterday. It's been too long. My daughter was still young and couldn't recognize me. That's why I specially went to Ning City to do a DNA test. Wang Xinfang didn't care if the other party was willing to listen or not, and said directly. Chapter 208. Most of these people were curious. When they heard Wang Xinfang's words, many of them turned their heads and stared at Jing Yunjiao for a while. How could you lose her? It's such a pity. If you don't raise the child by your side, you'll definitely become distant. She's already so big. The auntie said out of turn. After she finished speaking, many people expressed their agreement in their hearts. However, at the same time, they also understood Jing Yunjiao's cold attitude. Seeing that this girl was dressed appropriately and the material of her clothes were extremely good, she must have lived a very good life before she found her biological parents. Looking at her parents, they were covered in dirt and grime. With one look, one could tell that their family situation wasn't very good. This girl must have despised them in her heart, right? Sigh. It's all my fault for only finding her after so long. Even if she blames me, it's only right. However, I believe that the child's nature isn't bad. Everything will be fine in the future. Now that I've found her, I can die in peace. Wang Xinfang said with a bitter face. Jing Yunjiao's eyebrows twitched. At this moment, her mood became more and more complicated. She wasn't an ordinary 16-year-old girl. In the past, she had been tormented by Xiao Hongya, so much that she was extremely sensitive to the tone of other people's words. How could she not hear the ambiguity in her words? All of her words were telling others that she was blaming her biological parents. Also, if her nature wasn't bad, did that mean that her temperament wasn't good right now? Jing Yunzhao took a deep breath. If these were her biological parents, it seemed that there would be trouble in the future. Little girl, you have to be filial to your parents in the future. Look at how tired they are. You can't make them unhappy anymore. When they were about to get out of the car, the auntie next to her said again. Along the way, Wang Xinfang and the auntie chatted happily. Jing Yunzhao didn't want to talk too much, so she didn't pay attention to them. However, at this moment, when she heard such words again, Jing Yunzhao couldn't bear it anymore. Auntie, if you like educating people so much, you can go back and educate your own children. Do you have nothing better to do now? Also, if they were really my parents, I would naturally be filial to them, but I'm not sure if that's the case. Even if they were, they wouldn't be so tired because of me. Please don't put all the blame on me. I just met this couple yesterday, and I'm already very cooperative by being willing to come over today. Besides, I haven't said a word along the way. Which eye of yours saw me making them unhappy again? After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, he glanced at Wang Xinfang. Aunt Wang, don't you have 2 daughters and a son in your family? Why didn't she mention it when she was talking to others? Look, everyone has misunderstood me. They think that you've been looking for me for more than 10 years after you abandoned me. As soon as Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, he exhaled and got out of the car. His back was cold. She had long been used to living without her biological parents. Now, she was willing to acknowledge them not because she lacked family affection, but because she wanted to give herself an explanation. During those days in prison in her previous life, she constantly wondered why her biological parents had abandoned her. She also constantly fantasized about how her life would be like if she had never been separated from her biological parents. Therefore, she didn't resist these 2 people who suddenly appeared and claimed to be her parents. She even actively cooperated with them. Jing Yunzhao's words made Wang Xinfang and the auntie blush. The auntie suspiciously glared at Wang Xinfang. So this couple actually had 3 children? That was different. If they really missed their lost children so much, why did they keep giving birth to so many? They valued boys more than girls, right? Chapter 209. Wang Xinfang was exposed by Jing Yunzhao on the spot and felt embarrassed. She hurriedly got out of the car. The strong sunlight outside made her face even redder. Jing Yunzhao opened his mouth as if to say something, but Jing Yunzhao ignored him. He simply called a taxi and drove to Ning City's largest hospital. How expensive is it to call a taxi? If the 3 of us took the bus, it would only cost a few dollars. Wang Xinfang couldn't help but mutter. Her face was a bit bitter. It would be better if she was smiling, but right now, she looked as if she had lost $1,000. Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but wonder if she would cry if she kept this mouth shape for a while. It's fine. It's just a few dozen dollars. What's more important than finding our daughter? Jing Taijun said. Wang Xinfang didn't say anything. But when they got out of the car, before Jing Taijun could take out the money, Jing Yunzhao had already handed it over. She didn't want to take advantage of others. If the test results came out and the other party wasn't her biological parents, it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't yell at her for a few dozen dollars. She had enough of people like Chao Weiman. Now, she was a bit guarded against everyone. This Ning City Central Hospital had many tall buildings. It looked really grand and wasn't something that a small place like the county could compare to. Ning City's prosperity could be ranked in the top in the whole of China. This medical standard also represented the development of Ning City. Therefore, not only was the construction very grand, the environment inside was also very good. The test wasn't very troublesome. Pay the money, collect the blood sample, and it was over quickly. Under Jing Yunzhao's insistence, the few $1,000s were split equally between the 2 parties so that there wouldn't be any monetary implications after confirming that they weren't related. Xiao Yun, you see, this big hospital is really different. All right, a few days ago I felt a bit out of breath and wasn't feeling very well. Since we're already here, why don't you accompany Mom to have a look? Wang Xinfeng also knew that Jing Yunjiao didn't like to interact with others. She just stood beside her with a face full of expectation. Jing Yunjiao glanced at her and nodded. The departments in the central hospital were clearly separated. One only needed to take the elevator to get up and down. Every place was easy to find. Wang Xinfeng did a few tests while Jing Yunjiao waited outside. There were people coming and going in the hospital. Jing Yunjiao stood in the same place, but suddenly, someone bumped into her. Ouch! Why did you bump into me? It hurts so much. The old lady on the ground scolded. I didn't hit you. You threw yourself at me, Jing Yunjiao said directly. There weren't cameras everywhere in the hospital. At least, there weren't anywhere Jing Yunjiao was at. Little girl, why are you spouting nonsense? Are you her guardian? How did you educate your child? I'm not trying to blackmail you. These days, children are getting more and more immature. The old lady got up and pointed at Jing Taijun as she scolded. Jing Taijun looked a bit embarrassed. I'm sorry. My daughter didn't do it on purpose. How about this? I have a few hundred yuan here. I'll leave some for the fare and give the rest to you. After Jing Taijun finished speaking, he stood in front of her as if he was afraid that she would be bullied. He quickly stuffed the money into the old lady's hands and helped her leave. Although Jing Tiejuan's face was full of protection, Jing Yunjiao wasn't moved at all. Whether or not she did it, Jing Taijun was clear in his heart. This kind of behavior was only confirming her crime. She, Jing Yunjiao, was reborn. She definitely wouldn't bear a crime that didn't belong to her, even if this matter was so small that it could be ignored. Wait! Jing Yunjiao shouted with a cold face. She walked over and stuffed the money in the old lady's hands back into Jing Tiejuan's hands. There's no reason in this world to pay for being bumped into. Chapter 210. The old lady and Jing Taijun were both stunned. Some of the patients beside them also stopped. The old lady was old and weak. She looked like a weakling. Weaklings were easy to sympathize with. She did not have an advantage in this aspect. Little girl, are you trying to bully the old lady? Didn't you go to school? Didn't your teacher teach you to respect the old and love the young? The old lady said. Jing Yunjiao's eyes flashed with a trace of mockery. Old lady, you're not the only one in this hospital. I believe there are still people who saw the truth. Even if everyone thinks that I hit you, fine. I'll just go for a checkup. It's best if it's a full-body checkup. Although it's a little troublesome, I think it's more responsible than a few hundred yuan, right? Jing Yunjiao paused for a moment before continuing. Old madam, I can check every single part of your body, but don't worry, you don't have to pay for it. It's just taking a bit of your blood and tormenting you a bit. If I can't finish it in a day, then we'll continue tomorrow. I'll take full responsibility for this. What do you say? After Jing Yunjiao finished speaking, the old lady's face trembled. I don't want to check, and I don't want your money. I just want you to apologize. The old lady was in a deadlock. Apologize? Sure, but you have to think it through. Jing Yunjiao laughed coldly and spoke in a voice that no one else could hear. After I apologize, if an old man like you really gets hit by a car, then you can't blame me anymore. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. We'll definitely meet again in the future. When that time comes, if I'm still young and don't know any better and accidentally kill someone, then the responsibility wouldn't be too heavy. After hearing this, the old lady could not help but take a step back. Jing Yunjiao's murderous aura was thick. His smile was cold and cruel. It was really scary. The old lady turned to leave. Jing Yunjiao directly reached out and grabbed her arm. He continued to smile and said, Why are you leaving? Aren't you going for a checkup? You just said that I hit you. Don't I have to take responsibility? His hand was slender and looked like he was pulling gently. However, the old lady's face was pale. She felt like her bones were about to break. She stared at Jing Yunjiao with her eyes wide open. However, she saw that Jing Yunjiao's cold smile was still as if he did not do it on purpose. You let go of me, the old lady said anxiously. That won't do. My teacher taught me to respect the old and love the young. He also taught me to take responsibility. If you leave, someone might say that I ran into an old lady and abandoned her. Jing Yunjiao's voice was cold. His strength increased by a few notches. No, You didn't hit me. It was my own carelessness. The old lady was suddenly frightened. She felt that the girl wasn't just trying to scare her. Her gaze was as if she wanted to eat someone. Moreover, she was extremely strong. She felt that if she didn't retreat, this little girl would crush her arm in the next second. Really? In that case, I'm relieved. Jing Yunjiao looked at her deeply and let go of her hand. The old lady instantly left as if she was running for her life. As they grew older, they naturally cherished their lives more than the younger ones. Who would dare to provoke someone over such a small matter? What if the person they met was really a lunatic? He never thought that Jing Yunjiao would use such a method to scare the old lady away. Originally, he wanted to take this opportunity to show off and let Jing Yunjiao let down his guard. Who would have thought that this little girl would not play by the rules at all? When ordinary children encountered such a situation, would they use such a method to resolve it? Don't say any more, Uncle Jing. I know what you're thinking. However, I hate it when people plot against me. If you're really my biological parents, then I will naturally fulfill my responsibility to support you. However, if you have other ideas, then I won't accompany you. Right now, we still don't know if we're father and daughter, so I don't think I need to fulfill my responsibility as a daughter. Therefore, I'm sorry, but I'll leave first. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.